$50 US for 1 unit of Hyperliquid.
Are you showing your bags on the show again? Is that what's happening?
Oh, I'm giving a little sneak peek with this headline. They don't know what's about to come up. Good morning. Happy Monday, Andy. How was the surf this weekend?
It's pretty great. I'm pretty tired. We surfed all day yesterday and twice on Saturday. Threw a party on Friday. Good weekend, man. I worked too. I got some sick guests for us lined up. I think we're pretty close to getting I got Arthur Hayes lined up for a Singapore in-person show. We got Paolo from Tether going to do a virtual show.
Nice, very nice.
We got Ryan Watkins coming on sometime soon, and I'm working on Kathy. So that was my weekend for you, buddy. It's a good morning here in Florida or in Hawaii.
One of those two for sure.
What's going on today, Rob?
Well, we've got several Hyperliquid bowls on the docket.
Oh yeah.
You look a little zoomed out, but I think that's okay. We're gonna get zoomed in.
That's all good. I think you're just zoomed in. If I'm zoomed out, you're zoomed in.
We'll let the producers handle that behind the scenes. I spent my weekend reading proposals about stablecoin issuance.
Okay, nice. How'd that go?
So it went quite well. I think the really 90% of these proposals are relatively similar across the board. I read Agora, I read Frax, and I read Paxos. I also read 𝘗𝘳𝘵𝗪𝘀's blog post from 2 months ago that wasn't really a proposal, but he threw it in the mix. I think Moon Overlord had the best response to that blog post. He said, Jeremy, this is a mistake and you have 3 days to fix it. Now 2 days, because that is when the USDH deadline for proposals has passed. So we're going to hear from each of these stablecoin issuers, Frax, Agora, and Paxos. All of them are coming on the show here, one after another. Starting in just a couple of minutes, we're going to start off with the Agora proposal. USDH has spurred Hyperliquid to all-time highs.
Yeah,
which is pretty exciting. We saw multiple liquid funds, including shout out our guy Mike Dudas of Six Man Ventures. Did not participate early on in the Hyperliquid ecosystem, but has since purchased a sizable position in Hype. And I think there was, the name escapes me, but there was another fund that did the same thing. So now we're seeing how this stablecoin request for proposal has led to an additional revenue stream, or at least a potential revenue stream for Hyperliquid. I think by the math that was in some of these proposals, currently they're leaving about $220 million in revenue per year on the table as a result of using USDC as the quote asset for the Hyperliquid spot markets. In reality, it's a lot bigger because the $220 million is that number we arrived there based on the amount of Hyperliquid, the amount of stable coins that are currently on Hyperliquid's books. I think it's about $5.5 billion. And so currently treasury rate in T-bills is about 4%. And so if Hyperliquid had custody and ownership over all of the stable coins in its platform, it would be able to obviously issue the stable coin based off of those reserves and then capitalize on the interest that the T-bills offer, which currently would add about $220 million. All of the proposals so far have suggested buying back Hype and redistributing it for a variety of reasons. That's what they would do with the revenue. Some of them have various fees. There's not a ton of fees associated with most of these issuance processes. So this is it's a no-brainer from Hyperliquid's case. I think the biggest L so far is Circle if they are to lose the USDC that they currently have on Hyperliquid. There's a lot of nuance that's going on in this conversation. I'm excited to talk to the people that are building at the frontier and working on the issuance of a native Hyperliquid stablecoin. I think one interesting fact here, and there are several, is that there's already native stablecoins on Hyperliquid. It's a permissionless L1. Some might disagree with that. Some call it an Arbitrum L3, but for the purposes of this show, we're going to call it an L1. And there's already native stablecoins on there, but they just don't have the backing of Hyperliquid in the sense that Hyperliquid is using the native stablecoin as its quote asset for spot and perpetual markets, which would then collateralize all of the positions on Hyperliquid. That's what we're looking to select a winning proposal now. So Andy, from your research over the weekend, you've spoken to people, you're obviously terminally online and on this subject. What has been your perception and impression of the issue so far?
I mean, I think the biggest point that you mentioned is this idea that there's a couple $100 million on the table. And I think that's the key idea here, is that whoever's going to win this ticker race, which is just a ticker race. But I think the core idea here is that there's I think there's around $200 million of USDC, that could be wrong, on the Hyperliquid chain, on Hypercore, and that could be earning yield, and getting passing the yield back to hype stakers, or contributing to buybacks and burns, and so, or just buybacks. So, I mean, look, I think that this is the biggest trend that I'm seeing from this is the bending the knee of massive institutional capital players in the space to Hyperliquid coming on. You've got institutions, VCs buying bags. You've got people lobbying the community. Might I remind you that the community is a lot of airdrop farmers who are OG perp traders who farmed points when nobody believed in the project, and now they're kind of have a position of power. And so it's a very interesting dynamic to follow as we unveil this. I think we have Nick in the back ready to rock and roll. Nick will be our first guest of the day. Nick is representing Agora. So Agora is a stablecoin project as well. They have AUSD. We saw Nick's proposal yesterday. In his proposal, he wrote about basically the idea that they had, all that. It looks like Hyper Collective is going to host a stablecoin showdown Twitter Spaces, so you guys can check out that as well. But basically, Nick wrote that they want to use Agora stablecoin infra to power USDH.
Andy, I'd like to double click on something that you said before Nick comes up, which is the cultural footprint of Hyperliquid.
Yeah.
Because it's majority farmers, people that actually use the product, right? I think that is distinct from these corporate chains, some of the more traditional financial institutions. Circle is probably the best example of this. Someone had a really funny tweet that, to be the intern that had to tell 𝘱𝘭𝘆𝘬 that 10% of his business was staked on this thing called Hyperliquid over the weekend.
Yeah, exactly.
Like that, I think just epitomizes like the separation and the cognitive dissonance in the mind of a lot of these traditional financial institutions and the executives that run these institutions, and the underbelly of crypto born out of the trenches and really building it for the people who are using it. That is the distinction. And so I wouldn't be surprised, and I'm curious about your take on this, if the community, as a result of the culture that they have at Hyperliquid, goes into a direction that's more crypto native. To me, there are proposals on the table here that come from more crypto native teams and less corporate teams. And I think that could, the other side of this is, of course, corporate teams are going to have more buttoned up. They're going to have maybe more professional banking relationships. There's legitimacy and experience that comes along with that. But I think from a cultural alignment standpoint, you have to look at some of the crypto native teams and really take them seriously when they put their proposal forth.
Well, we've got Nick in the back, and I was just looking at the latest from him, and there's some interesting specifics that I think that we ought to get into from the perspective of Agora and kind of their partners. So look, Rob, what we're going to do today is we're going to have a very streamlined set of questions for each of these people, try to make it very, very objective and fair for everybody, and just simply have some fun, hear some pitches, and learn about what these teams are doing. I think this is all in the spirit of community, of decentralization, of the success of Hyperliquid, and just the stablecoin super cycle. So, guys, we are gonna get Nick up, move in, and talk about the Ghora USDH proposal. Nick, looks like you're in a cubicle in New York City. That's what I expect. Good. It's good to see you, man.
Yeah, thank you guys for having me.
Absolutely. Welcome to the show. It's an exciting time. I think the USDH showdown has taken over the timeline. And so, yeah, we're in a position now where we can platform you guys. We're going to have a couple of the other proposed issuers on the show a little bit later. We're going to hear from each of you. And it's really exciting to put all these proposals on the table. I think this is democracy, meritocracy in action, and no better place for it than crypto. So,
and it's fun.
Absolutely. Absolutely.
Yes, I'm happy to start and give context on our proposal and sort of like what we're trying to accomplish. But you guys let me know where you want to.
Yeah, exactly. Please, opening remarks. Just kind of, I just want to understand. I think the community wants to understand kind of your perspective of writing the proposal, where you guys are coming from, and just kind of your opening statement here. And then we got a couple good questions for you.
Yeah, so I was going to the office on Friday, little to my own knowledge that my weekend would get totally blown up by this. Yeah, so I first got, someone sent me a DM and said, hey, this has come out. They're going to release the USDH ticker. There's already sort of been this pre-baked proposal suggested, you guys should throw your hat in the ring. And so, we immediately jumped on it. I would say, I had a stacked day on Friday with calls. So I actually started drafting our proposal at 5:30 p.m. on Friday. And the only proposal that was up at the time was, I think, the native markets proposal, which was a good proposal, obviously super community aligned team, but I think one of the advantages that we have is we're an issuer. So all we do is think of the challenges of scaling a stablecoin solution and to deliver, I would say, the best economics for the community, right? I think the native markets proposal was most, and we're hey, let's just make this a public good, right? That was always an intention that we had at Agora. Is actually our original slogan was digital dollars are public goods. And, we want to actually highlight some of the most important things when running a very large institutional stablecoin, right? USDC supply on Hyperliquid is at 5 billion or 6 billion, give or take. That is real size, right? And so one of the things that we wanted to call out, at least in one of the proposals, is that outsourcing it entirely to a third party where this isn't their core business, I think inserts a lot of risk into the system. And so, we called that out. And then I think one, it was just sort of upping to 100% revenue kickback. And then three, trying to actually build a coalition around this to make it successful, right? A lot of the other proposals were single issuer focused. Immediately what we did, and I think this is just kind of how we operate, is we pinged a lot of infrastructure partners that we thought would be super helpful, said, hey, we're going to put this proposal together. Would love to have your guys' support with USDH, right? And Rain jumped on super fast. So did Layer 0, as well as EtherFi, and a number of people just over the last 24 hours have continued to ping me directly. And I think while they wouldn't be exclusive to just us, and nor should they be, right? I think obviously if someone else wins, they should support USDH. They want to work with a team that they respect, have good communication with, and feel like they can execute with, right? Which is, I think, what we bring to the table. And yeah, this all happened very quickly. It's funny, funny getting some of these questions in Twitter and in the Discord. Oh, have you thought about this? Or you thought about this? How are you thinking about this? I'm some of them, I'm honestly, we don't know, right? We want to be committed to giving 100% of the revenue back, but we want to hear from the community on okay, do you orient that towards stakers? Do you buy back hype? What do you want us to do? And so something I was spitballing earlier this morning is well, maybe we actually just do a quarterly governance vote. It's how do you want to, spend the revenue from USDH, right? And maybe that's just the best way to do it versus saying, in this proposal, we're going to do this for, forever, right? Which is probably not the smart thing to do, right? It gives you no flexibility. And so, yeah, there's a few more days. I expect there will be a few more proposals. But I think ultimately, like, this is bringing a lot of really good attention to the Hyperliquid, and has kind of led to the best economics for the community. So it's pretty fun to watch.
Yeah, absolutely. I think one thing that was
all-time highs this morning, guys. Like, it absolutely has.
Yeah.
I'm sorry, Rob. Go ahead, buddy.
No, I mean it's obvious. There's obviously a lot of demand here. I mean, Hyperliquid's one of the most forward-looking teams, just to consider how much money that they were leaving on the table and now going through this open process rather than doing this behind closed doors. I think it presents the best of why we're in this industry, and that's healthy competition. And so I think it's really, really cool to see play out. One of the things that I was curious about is, and we were talking about a little bit about this before you hopped on, which is that, this proposal is for this ticker, this USDH ticker, and then it's really like the work just begins. And I've seen a lot of these proposals talk about, okay, no matter what, we're going to contribute and be active participants in the Hyperliquid ecosystem, as well as be shepherds for this USDH stablecoin beyond just letting it be the quote asset for Hyperliquid's markets. So I'm curious, what would 𝘗�13 do to help broaden USDH beyond just Hyperliquid? And what other things do you have in mind to become active and more active participants in the Hyperliquid ecosystem?
Yeah, I think it's a great question. And it's like the work really does begin. I think like a lot of people have sort of put a lot more weight on this than, right, it is just a ticker. So it is just the beginning. But for us, like, we wanted to really open up. We view this as a way, one, to, distribute revenue back to the community, but two, open up Hyperliquid assets to places where they haven't been exposed before, right? It's why we reached out to Rain. They support, 150 plus countries, billions of merchants. You get access to Visa rails and all the payment rails that they're integrated in. With us, you have access to institutional grade banking, SWIFT, SEPA, ACH, Wire, all of this, with, other partners like MoonPay as well. They're connected to pretty much every wallet in crypto. We've had a war room chat going with them and thinking like, okay, how can we integrate some of the builder codes direct to MoonPay's wallet clients? And so I think it's really broadening up the distribution of USDH beyond just the Hyperliquid ecosystem. And so we work with, like, I would say, a lot of the best in class, either infrastructure or applications sort of outside the Hyperliquid ecosystem to, really broaden up exposure. I would say within like Hyperliquid, it's all about seeding liquidity early and working with a bunch of partners. We've had a number of apps reach out over the last 24 hours that are interested to not only just seed liquidity, but also seed some incentives. We've had one counterparty reach out that wants to seed it with 9 figures of TVL and get some vaults going as soon as this launches. I think, and it's funny, someone actually in the Discord community was like, why will this be successful? Like, why will USDH be more successful than like some of these other stable coins or white label stable coins? I'm like, because this is like really owned by the community, and like the Hyperliquid community is like so much bigger than I think a lot of people realize, right? It's, you go to Binance or OKX or someone, they're like, okay, it's going to be this to list me. We have people saying, oh, we'll do all this stuff for free, right? Because they know that the demand is going to be there. And so, look, I think we're going to do an excellent job executing with some of the best partners in the space. I think there's a number of other great proposals out there as well. What I would hate to see, though, is that this effectively goes to sort of a competitive firm and a competitive issuer that has their own chain and own ecosystem and might really look to use it to sort of vampire tax some of Hyperliquid, which is kind of what we called out in our post originally.
Okay, so when you guys are looking at this entire landscape and kind of trying to figure out the best way to navigate the community, you guys have been getting slapped around a bit by some anon on Twitter who probably got a massive Hyperliquid airdrop, who won't leave you guys alone, about Michael Siegel's the CFA of a different Van Eck kind of arm, if you will.
Oh, Matt's, yeah.
Tweets about Hyperliquid. So there's been some some pushback from the Hyperliquid community with regards to the way that people within the VanEck organization have addressed the platform in the past. Just want to give you a chance to kind of speak on that and kind of address how VanEck works and kind of how either the views of, you know, one person or within the org don't represent all people in the org, or just kind of give your take on that, because I think that the community is going to want to hear a genuine response to this kind of pushback.
Yeah, I think it's a good call out, right? I think the way that Matt probably could have been a little bit more generous in how he engaged with the community then. Like, it was, frankly, like, personally speaking, it's pretty painful to watch. You know, for me when it was happening, I kind of hoped people would memory hole it. And I also know it's like painful for other people on the VanEck team, right? Like, it's a 500+ person organization. It's a $130 billion asset manager. There's many different teams, right? You have the research team, the venture team, the trading team, you know, ETF team, right? And I would say particularly on like the venture team and the trading team side, like, they're very active with many of the teams in the Hyperliquid community. They know them. You know, many people at VanEck are users of Hyperliquid, right? Either professionally or, you know, personally, but I can't comment on, you know, on that. And yeah, it is what it is. Look, I mean, like, it's good, I think, also for you to have independent voices that may like be open to a lot of criticism, which he clearly is. So that's kind of like how I feel about that. You know, I don't work there. I don't control them, right? So it's kind of unrelated to me. I understand, like, if people have like an issue with, you know, or supportive of other proposals, they may want to pin that on me, but like, I have zero control over that. You know, do I wish it didn't happen? Yeah, of course. Like, it's annoying, right? Hyperliquid aside, I just generally think like kind of acting like that is obtuse, but again, that's kind of it.
Alrighty. Guys, so Frax 35 minutes ago has just updated their proposal. So Nick, I'm not sure if you've had a chance to look at this, and I appreciate the response there. I think the community, I think a lot of people doubted Hyperliquid, and it's one of the very first kind of projects in the space that has really flipped the switch, or flipped the script per se, on kind of gave a bunch of these young, maybe community-oriented folk that aren't like prominent in the space big airdrops, became powerful in the space, you know, and now it's like the tables are turning. You've got VanEck coming for, you know, to participate in this ecosystem. It's like the institutions are coming for us, or it's like the big players want to participate in what we've built. I think it's a really strong sign of product market fit, but I also think it comes with a lot of that kind of like tribalism that you see early communities have success with. But kind of switching to what Frax has just done, they've announced that they are establishing a Frax-led USDH alliance with a federally regulated U.S. bank issuer. This bank is prepared to issue USDH if we are selected, with contracts under review. 100% to Hyperliquid, Hypercore ready, yada, yada. Nick, what is your take on the competitive landscape right now? Is Paxos missing the beat with 95% of revenue only? Is Frax now going to be more competitive with this new announcement? Generally, maybe how are you seeing this landscape within the realm of being Hyperliquid aligned? Like, when you're looking at the other proposals and your own, I'm curious what you think Hyperliquid native or aligned means to you, you know, in the landscape of this current situation, given the other proposals.
Yeah, it's interesting, right? Because specifically for this product too, like as an issuer, right, everyone else has almost been frozen out of Hyperliquid, because, you know, when the project originally started, right, it was like, you know, USDC, right? And so there was actually no way for like other issuers to be involved. So it's interesting, right? You could sort of have like the community led ones where I think they're sort of outsourcing the operations, you know, stablecoin regulation entirely to someone else, and saying like, hey, we come from the community, but we're going to outsource this to someone that we think could maybe do a good job, right? And so I think those are the ones that are really indexing on community. But like, that brings a lot of risks to the table, right? Because then you basically have a team that isn't an issuer, doesn't maybe understand the ins and outs, right, of how to run these financial products, and then has a lot of dependencies on one provider to the table, right, then I would say you sort of have, us, Paxos, Frax, I'm sure a bunch of other people are going to come in, right, that have said, hey, we've operated this type of business for a long time. Like, we know how to do it well. And we want to broaden really actually the aperture of Hyperliquid to all these other ecosystems that we either participate in or traditional financial rails, right? So I would say, like, from our perspective, the way that, like, many of us have been involved is primarily been personally in talking to teams, whether they're Hyperliquid native or actually came from other ecosystems and then have started, either pivoted or sort of added their product, into the Hyper ecosystem. And so working very closely with them to get lending and DEX markets stood up as soon as possible would be a priority of ours. But I'd say in terms of, like, alignment, right, like, our objective, and I think everyone's objective, is to how do you make USDH a huge success, right? And clearly there's going to be a tremendous amount of support within the Hyperliquid ecosystem. And so from our perspective, we're like, okay, well, what else can we bring to bear that, like, Hyperliquid doesn't have today, right? It's Visa rails, access to, millions of merchants globally, access to exchanges, bringing traditional institutional spot products into the Hyper EVM. So, we've been talking with a number of, Centrifuge, came out yesterday. We're talking with a number of providers. I would love to say more about Van Eck, but unfortunately they are very much a TradFi firm and will not let me say anything publicly. But look, you can imagine we would have conversations with them, BlackRock, everyone else, right, to really bring these guys to the table. Because if we think about, like, Hyperliquid, it's obviously been a tremendous success, but this is, like, still early innings, right? Like, if you look at, like, Binance OI or, like, the trading volumes of traditional exchanges, like, if you ask Jeff, that's probably his fucking North Star, right? And so you need to bring institutional partners and assets to this ecosystem if you really want it to scale, right? And I think that's where we can come in and really add a tremendous amount of value. Look, I think probably the ideal scenario is you have a number of these proposals that can sort of come together in some form, some shape or another, because, like, you bring, like, the whole weight of some of these to bear, and it's going to be nothing but good for the Hyperliquid ecosystem. And so that's, like, where I would say, like, we slot in. Obviously, like, there's a matrix of, who's maybe more community oriented versus maybe who's the safer operator and who's done this and can maybe bring other institutions. So it'll be up to the community to sort of see what they want, right? Do you want to index on teams that can bring a lot of domain expertise to this specific product and a lot of other support, or index towards community teams that have been with Hyperliquid for a very, very long time, or super dedicated to the ecosystem, but might be outsourcing this product? So we'll see, but it'll be fun.
Yeah, absolutely. Nick, we just got a few minutes left before we keep it rolling here. And I wanted to give you a chance to expand on what I thought was a pretty important part of the proposal. You mentioned it again here, and it's the potential conflict of interest from an entity that comes in and issues the stablecoin as a method to vampire attack a lot of stablecoins away from Hyperliquid's ecosystem and take it onto one of its own competing products. And, I think you made kind of a subtle nod to this in your proposal. You said Agora is a neutral issuer without its own settlement network or brokerage, e.g. Paxos. Like, is that what you're kind of pointing at as the potential conflict of interest here? And why is it such a potential, like, such a concern that, Paxos has its own brokerage? How do you think that might play out?
So I actually don't think Paxos is really, like, the real threat here, because similar to us, they don't have their own chain or ecosystem. They, of course, have their brokerage product, but, like, being intellectually honest, I don't really think that competes with Hyperliquid spot markets, even though it does a little bit of the same stuff, right? What I was really actually calling out was, like, Stripe, right? Like, Tempo just was announced last week. Like, these guys are planning to win, right? They put on, like, a happy face. We want to, work with a bunch of different, parties and build this multi-party network. We're not like the bad guys. Anyone that comes from, like, fintech or Silicon Valley will tell you that the Stripe team is, like, the most ruthless people in fintech. And I wanted to really just call that out. Like, it's like, okay, like, you're going to cede potentially the biggest asset in your ecosystem to someone that is a direct competitor and has a conflict. And I think we sort of, and, like, really the other considerations of other proposals we outlined was really at that, right?
Mm.
And so maybe even like going back to just like, the community alignment, I think the native markets team is super community aligned. I said this in another post this morning. What I would encourage them to do if they win is to actually maybe work with someone that is a bit more neutral, has GSIBs, and has much more robust financial service infrastructure. Look, it could be us, it could be Paxos, it could be someone else. I don't care. Like, this is something that it was really important to get right.
Yeah.
And so, like, I would really urge the native markets team to maybe rethink who they're using on the financial infrastructure side. And so that's really what it was focused on. I think it's time for people to wake up. Otherwise, like, all of crypto is going to be owned by one company, and I don't want that to happen.
So would you say that Paxos and Agora are better positioned than Frax to do USDH?
I think we're regulated ourselves. We have bank accounts in our own name. So from a financial operations perspective, I think that's certainly the case.
Okay. There's some weird comments going around about Dragonfly being investors in Rain and Agora. And this guy, Alex, again, this guy keeps giving you a whole handful, but he's saying,
this guy really doesn't like us. I don't know, it's funny. It's either us or Matt Siegel. I don't know but it's funny.
I know.
I try to be polite with him.
Yeah, and Rob from Dragonfly stood up for you guys and whatnot. But yeah, basically, I mean, I just think that that's that. But there were some interesting comments on this, and one was about changing the structure or the rev share in the future. Let's say you guys win. How dedicated are you to keeping 100% of the rev share to Hyperliquid? Is there plans to change that?
We don't plan to make any money on this. Like, and people are kind of like, oh, the net revenue. We're not making money on this. 100% of the revenue would go back to the community in some form or another. I think what would be really cool is to do this on like a quarterly governance vote, right? It's like, because you can really clearly, like, we have accounting team. We do this in a very rigid way. It's like, this is what we made every single day from USDH, and vote on it. How should this get sliced and diced? Like 20% go to the assistance funds, 60% of stake, right? Stakers is all, like, I think it's up in the air, but we are 100% committed to giving 100% of the revenue, back to the community, in whatever form the governance sort of decides. Yeah. And maybe that's what we do, is we do set up quarterly. For us, like, this is clearly, we just want to run it as a public good and deliver maximum value back to the community.
Yeah. And so this is obviously a win for Hyperliquid because of, kind of bringing this into their own stack.
It's great. Like, native markets, I think, was going to do like 50%. And then Paxos and us came in and we're like, no, like 95, 100% or bust. And so no one's making money on this. No one should make money on this at this point, right?
And so at this point, so how does this benefit whoever ends up winning? Let's say it is Agora, right? You guys aren't going to be making anything from the net revenue, but how does it help advance Agora's interests?
Look, I think for us, obviously, like, it's an opportunity to for me, it's personally very cool. Like, the reason I've been in crypto since 2016. The reason I left to start my own company is I feel like we're in a once in a generation transformation of financial markets and payment rails, right? It's going to last for 30 years, very similar to like how cloud software is just eaten on-prem and human-driven workflows the last 30 years. And like, I just want to spend my life being a part of that. So for me personally, it would just be an incredible opportunity, I think, to do like a public good service. I think for like the company itself, obviously, like many people within the firm interact with Hyperliquid or have friends that are in the community or run companies or validators within the community. And so for them, it's like personally very, very fun as well. And then obviously it's great brand value, right? Like, Hyperliquid is the most important perp dex in crypto, right? Like, by far. And so, us, I think, proving and that our battle tested infrastructure can support something like Hyperliquid would be a huge win for us. And so that's how I see it. I think there's, we have a great proposal. I think there's some other great proposals out there. I think at the end of the day, it's great that Hyperliquid is going to get 100% of the revenue, or should, right? Given the proposals and, that it's generated so much interest in the community.
Awesome. Well, Nick, thanks so much for coming on, man.
One last thing for you.
Yeah, go ahead.
Please, just if So, I saw 𝘰𝘳𝘵𝗧𝘗 and Six Man Ventures went out and said that they just bought a ton of hype over the last, I don't know, some time period. How will your personal or how will the people around you's contributions to the hype ecosystem in terms of actually owning the asset, participating in the hyper EVM, and kind of seeding that ecosystem be affected if you guys win this?
Yeah, so Mike obviously worked at Paxos, right? But for us, I mean, I think Paradigm is probably like the biggest holder of like hype on earth, right? And they just led our seed round and are one of the most involved parties in Agora. Dragonfly is also super involved, and then again, like I don't work at Van Eck, but they are definitely involved and they're actively working with teams in the space. Unfortunately, they're a little bit more TradFi, so they're making me keep a lid on it. But
I gotta call Pranav.
Everyone we know.
Like, all right, man.
Yeah, dude, just call.
Come on, Pranav. Let's go.
You know these guys. You know Gabe. You know Pranav. Just call them, please. Like, I've been asking the last 12 hours to stay more, and compliance is saying no. So it is what it is. But like that's how you operate a real business actually too is keeping mum on certain things that you're doing. But that's how we're involved, and a lot of the people around us are involved, and they'll continue to be.
Beautiful. Nick, that's all I had. Thanks for your time, man. Looking forward to hopping in on some of these spaces later this week, and thanks for sharing your perspective and your insights, and for the weekend proposal. I know it's a journey, but I hope it works out for you, and thanks for coming.
Thanks, guys. It's been fun.
All right, Nick. See you soon, buddy. Cheers. All right, Rob. Initial takeaways, thoughts on Nick. What's your take?
What I'm trying to take away from each of these is the unique advantage that each of them serve to the Hyperliquid ecosystem. I think Nick is very keyed in on his relationship with some of the institutional partners. Rain is a big one. I don't know if Rain is a unique differentiator to Agora's proposal. I think a couple of the other proposals also mentioned that they work with Rain. And so, Rain is obviously important because their debit card infrastructure spans multiple continents, several countries, and they're tight with Visa. So USDH can then span globally and scale with Visa's network as a result of working with an issuer that has a nice relationship with Rain. But again, I don't think that's a unique differentiator for Agora. One thing that he mentioned was that they have partners that are looking to commit 9 figures, so $100 million of capital on day one in liquidity. I think that's pretty unique. I don't know if these other issuers are looking at something similar.
Well, the reason why I asked that question at the end was just like, I was trying to figure out, like, if they win, are they just going to be massive stewards of the Hyperliquid ecosystem and, basically buy more hype? But, obviously he can't just answer that straight up. But all right, we got Bo in the background. Bo is the co-founder of Paxos Labs. It's funny that I just asked Nick about 𝘰𝘳𝘵𝘧𝘗's take, and then he's like, yeah, he used to work at Paxos. Classic Mike. Gotta love it. We got Bo in the background. We'll get him up, and we'll talk all things Paxos proposals and more. Bo, welcome to the show, and I'm sure it's been a busy weekend.
Andy, Rob, thanks for having me. And it has been. The team and I were actually doing our offsite down in Mexico, and we were all flying back on Saturday. And so Friday night we went to dinner, and then it was heads down. We saw the proposal came out, moved quickly. We're scrambling at the airport, getting proposals out, Discord comments up. It was crazy, but a lot of fun.
Yeah,
good, man.
That's pretty convenient to have a war room spun up in Mexico City.
Right. Yeah. It was actually great. We were all there together. We took one break to go get dinner, and then we were back at it around the dining table. It's actually a lot of fun.
Yeah,
crazy, but a lot of fun.
Well, Bo, I want to give you the chance to open up, right? Opening kind of statement here. You, from Paxos Labs perspective, obviously you guys decided that this was a venture worth endeavoring on the weekend. Talk to us about your perspective. Give us the Paxos Labs viewpoint on why Paxos Labs is the right fit for this kind of USDH stablecoin, and just kind of walk us through some of your storyline to getting to this point.
Yeah, totally. And I think this proposal like seems like it came out of the blue for a lot of people, but I will say it's something that, Hyperliquid as an ecosystem is something we've been thinking about. And obviously Paxos has been doing stablecoins for a really long time. But the background is, right, like Paxos started in 2012 and the position was always, hey, there's like a better financial system to be had. And really the thought was, our belief was that better financial system was going to be served through the existing winning platforms, right? We're going to go work with the platforms that have the users and help them build on top of our infrastructure. And specifically, we believed that infrastructure needed to be regulated infrastructure. The hypothesis was like, hey, like to really bring on billions of users onto crypto native rails, that's not going to happen in a completely unregulated way, right? And so Paxos has done the hard work, was the first crypto company to get a charter from the NYDFS. We have our New York State charter. We've issued stablecoins out of Singapore, the EU, Abu Dhabi. We are the only globally regulated issuer. But we've learned a lot over the last kind of 10 years of issuing stablecoins. And one of the things that we really learned was it is very hard to do stablecoin issuance right. Regulated, safe stablecoin issuance that enterprises will work with, right? But what we learned, through all of the launches, we did the Binance stablecoin, we did PayPal stablecoin, we've done USDG most recently with Robinhood, Kraken, Anchorage, a few others, is that launching is just day one. And this has kind of come up in a lot of different conversations. Like people are so concerned with the details of like, which regulator are you going to use? How's this going to work? How's that going to work? And it's getting to launch is really hard. Don't get me wrong. But it's like, what happens after that? And so we actually started on this kind of journey end of last year. So I was the product lead for launching several Paxos stablecoins. I worked on PYUSD. I worked on USDL, which is our yield-bearing stablecoin. I worked on USDG. And time again, the same problem came up. It's like, we do this really hard work of getting regulated, getting the banking infrastructure set up, but then what, right? And what we started to like think about was like, hey, like a lot of the growth today is coming from on-chain native ecosystems, right? And obviously Hyperliquid is blowing up. And so we had our eyes on that. And so what we actually decided to do at the start of last year is start this Paxos Labs initiative. And the entirety of the Paxos Labs initiative was, how do we go grow stablecoins and stablecoin adoption in kind of more crypto native ecosystems? Obviously, Paxos was very focused on enterprises, the PayPals, the interactive brokers, the new banks of the world. We kind of figured we need to bring both these things together. So we started working on this initiative at the end of last year. At the start of this year, we got the opportunity to meet Molecular Labs, which is a team that's been building in the Hyperliquid ecosystem from day one. They're the infrastructure behind 𝘭𝑄 and WHLP. Their vision of kind of like building utility, tokenized asset utility in ecosystems really aligned with what we were looking to do. And so we entered an agreement to acquire them, I want to say in June. And we've been in the closing process. We were going to do an announcement. Obviously, like this whole thing came out of the blue and we had to, cat's out of the bag now. But we have an awesome team that's been building in Hyperliquid since day one. And so, our position is like, hey, like bringing together Paxos's regulated expertise of doing all the hard stuff that takes you to get to day one with the team that we brought on in Paxos Labs, we can actually help USDH scale beyond just kind of like, hey, we have a regulated issuance.
Yeah, I mean, you guys mentioned across the board some of the Genius Act compliance, some of the other key benefits in the actual proposal, and I think Rob's probably got that up. While Rob's scoping some of the deets on that, just kind of more broad question following this opening statement vibe per se is just curious, like why, like what this ticker in particular means to Paxos Labs and to yourself, Bo. There's no reason why you can't bid for a different ticker later and still get a lot of the same perks in the Hyperliquid ecosystem, spot quote assets, perp margin access, these types of things. Why does this USDH ticker matter to you specifically? And then I think we'll dive into some of the nitty gritty of your proposal and look at the others and see what the community has to say.
Yeah. So in full transparency, we've already bought tickers that we were already planning to launch a stablecoin Hyperliquid, right? And so I think with this USDH proposal, like our hope was like we could bring the community with us, right? There wasn't really an opportunity to kind of like put our foot forward and kind of explain like how we thought we could bring a great stablecoin to Hyperliquid. And this is kind of like the perfect opportunity. We've already bought tickers. We've already been doing work in the background. And so regardless of where this vote goes, we're bringing a stablecoin to Hyperliquid. Yep. And so this is kind of a great opportunity to do it with the community. And honestly, one of my favorite parts of this whole process has been, there's been great questions in the Discord. There's been great questions on Twitter. And as someone that has built products and shipped stable coins, getting feedback before you launch is the best thing you could possibly ask for, right? Because you do all this work, you launch this, you might have built a bunch of stuff that people don't actually want or doesn't address kind of the needs of the community. And so this proposal process is an awesome way for us to connect with the community, understand what they really want, and build the right product for them, right? And build a product that serves Hyperliquid. And so, yes, you're right. It's just a ticker. But we see it as an opportunity of great, if we get this ticker and we can really build this with the community, amazing. If not, we're still going to bring a stablecoin to Hyperliquid. And, we welcome the community to give us feedback. We want to build the thing that makes sense, that benefits the holders of Hype, benefits the ecosystem, benefits everyone building on Hyperliquid, whether it's with this ticker or not. Yeah.
One of the things that we're trying to do on this show today is identify the unique value propositions that each of these proposals bring. One of the things that sticks out is the multiple billions of dollars in stablecoins that you guys have launched so far. You mentioned PayPal, USD, Binance USD. There's several others as well. And so I'm curious, how does the network effects and the liquidity in stablecoins that you've already launched, not just the experience, because I think a lot of the proposed issuers have experience launching stablecoins, but they haven't quite launched them at the scale that you have stablecoins in existing circulation. So is there benefits that you can provide through linking together these stablecoins? Is it greater clearing? Is it settlement? Is it lower fees? Is there general network effects that you can bring as a result of having this network of stablecoins that is already eclipsed billions of dollars?
100%, right? And that's part of the vision. And I'll give some concrete examples here, right? So USDG, and I heard you guys talking about RAIN before I jumped on. Not only does RAIN accept USDG, but USDG can be settled with Visa. Visa accepts USDG as a settlement asset. Now, if we are the issuer of USDG and USDH, right, and it's all on Paxos infrastructure, we can enable one-to-one interop, right? Because if you think about if these are two different issuers, right, the only way you can have true interop is the underlying base layer of banking needs to talk to each other. Again, then you're back to kind of existing banking rails. But really in this world, we're just moving between our own bank accounts, right, our own custodians. And so we can offer true one-to-one interop, not only between USDH and USDG, but any of our other stablecoins. And the reason we think the Hyperliquid ecosystem is so interesting is we do think it's different. It's kind of like a disjoint addressable market than who we typically work with. And our view is we can be the perfect connectivity point between kind of this really crypto native Hyperliquid ecosystem and the enterprises we work with, right? Whether that's Visa, whether that's MasterCard, PayPal, Interactive Brokers, I can go on and kind of the huge list of enterprise names. And so it's not just about launching the USDH token into the Hyperliquid ecosystem. It's hey, we're going to go connect this and make this the connection point between the entire financial system, right? And I think that's where it gets really compelling. You're absolutely right. Network effects of this thing, especially as we're the issuer of multiple assets across multiple kind of corners of the financial system, we can connect all of this together and create kind of a bigger outcome for everyone.
Yeah.
Well then, Bo, I just have to counter that with just some more very objective question here, which is if you feel so strongly about this, the other proposals are not taking any cut. They're giving everything back to the ecosystem. You guys are the only one that is doing a 5% or 95% retribution to the community, 5% not. If you feel so strongly about this, why is this the case? Why not just give all of the revenues from the stablecoin back to the community and kind of be in the same league as the other two major proposals today?
Totally. And I think it's a fair question. What I will say is I think incentives are a very powerful thing. And I actually think it's not good if the issuer of this doesn't make any money from it. Because what's going to happen is if it really is not driving the business for the issuer in any way, right, it becomes very likely they walk away from this and it doesn't actually become something they support for a long time, right? Look, we want to give as much away to the community, to the validators, to hype holders as we possibly can. But I think, we need to have some skin in the game, honestly, right? And I think there's a couple ways to do that, right? It's from the revenue from the stablecoin itself. We plan on obtaining some hype for our own balance sheet, right? And we can kind of contribute that way.
There you go.
We're not tied to the model. And again, like part of this is like, one of the pieces of feedback, and I'll just come out and say it, is like, there's been so much around like, why isn't this going to the assistant fund, right? I think that's been some great feedback, and we are going to iterate on that and include that in our updated proposal. It is something we're completely open to doing, right? With that said, I think the issuer needs some skin in the game, but also the platforms or the ecosystem players that are going to integrate USDH need some skin in the game. They need some incentive, right? And this is, again, like from all the learning we have from our stablecoin issuance, right? People don't just like flip their entire platform to something else overnight. Right. And you need to have some sort of incentive to drive that. And really our goal is like, hey, if we can get USDH integrated into the entire ecosystem very quickly, we'll move to like 100% to AF. Great. Like, right. Or like 99% to AF. Like amazing. Right. And so love the idea of it going to assistant fund. I think we need to be like pragmatic about like, how do we actually get this thing to grow and be big and become kind of the standard stablecoin in the ecosystem. So hopefully that answers your question.
Yeah, and I mean, I think it totally makes sense. I can imagine that in any sort of business line, if it's just a expense or a red line on the balance sheet, there's only so much that one can do in the sake of like alignment or whatever it is per se. But it seems like Agora and Frax don't really care. It seems like they're willing to eat that. Well, so I'm curious to see what your updated proposal has kind of built into it.
And it seems that these other proposals, they're bent on getting some indirect benefit as a result of just broadening their stablecoin issuance.
Right. Like Nick was saying, like, oh, don't trust the chain. Like if there's already a chain that wants a vampire attack into Hyperliquid, and I think he was talking about Tempo, maybe he was alluding to Frax a bit, but it seems like Paxos and Agora are kind of separate from that.
So, Bo, I wanted to kind of frame this question. How does it work with some of the existing stablecoins that you guys have launched? Take one, for example, maybe you can explain a couple of the different structures. Do you guys take, fees from those guys and that's how you're monetizing it? Or if you're not, how do you monetize an asset where you have all this issuance, but you're not directly collecting fees?
Yeah, I mean, ultimately, like the business model here is asset management, right? And so you're taking bips off of kind of the kind of like yield generated by the asset. In almost all of our issuances, we share the majority of the benefit with our issuance partner. But yeah, that's our business model, right? It's asset management plus technology on top, and all wrapped with regulatory compliance. And so that's the business model, that I think like anyone that's in this business will tell you, like, that's kind of how it goes. The interesting development has been like, Tether obviously keeps everything, right? I think Tether is in like a unique position. I don't think it makes sense over like a medium to long-term time frame that stable coin economics don't look like dollar economics, right? In a world where like there's dollars out there and people are getting nothing, I don't think that makes sense, right? But I think there is like, it looks a lot more like kind of asset management on tokenized money market funds or money market funds generally.
And another unique value proposition that I saw in your proposal that I didn't see in others was the second to last paragraph. And it says that you plan to add support for Hype as an asset within Paxos' brokerage infrastructure, powers crypto trading for platforms such as PayPal, Venmo, several others, interactive brokers. And so these other issuers, they don't have their own brokerage. How could that help the Hyperliquid ecosystem by getting added into Paxos' brokerage?
Yeah, so the Paxos runs crypto brokerage as a service, right? So we don't have a brokerage offering that is directly trying to go get end users or compete with, whatever, Hyperliquid or even like the Krakens and the Binance of the world. It's crypto brokerage as a service, right? And the idea is like, hey, on the PayPal app, on the Venmo app, on the Nubank app, customers want to buy Bitcoin, customers want to buy ETH, and we power that. And we actually route some of our flow, yes, to our own exchange, but we also work with a bunch of different exchanges. And so it's really like a brokerage as a service offering. And the idea here is like, yes, we're going to add support for Hype to our infrastructure. Does that mean everyone turns it on day one? No, but like, look, if you believe Hype is like one of the 3 blue chip tokens in the world, those people are going to want to turn it on, right? Because their customers are going to want access to it. And at the end of the day, everyone is customer led. So by us adding support for Hype to our crypto brokerage as a service offering, everyone that uses us as a crypto brokerage platform can now enable their users to buy and hold Hype. And so obviously, you know, we've got existing massive players on this, everyone from 𝘰𝘳𝘠𝘕 to Venmo to Interactive Brokers. But what I will say is over the last 6 months, this business has completely taken off, and some of the largest names in finance are integrating today with Paxos crypto brokerage. And so I think that's going to be even bigger. And the benefit to the community is like, hey, we're increasing the amount of people that can access Hype, right? And they can access it in their everyday apps, right? They don't need to be crypto native to get it, right? They can access it in their mobile apps. They can access it in their payment apps. And I think that's a really compelling use case because, you know, those are people that probably wouldn't have had access to it otherwise.
Yeah. Bo, real quick, you put out a tweet saying about how you guys didn't mention any of the partners that you guys were going to work with. I hear now from you that you're going to take the kind of feedback from the community as well as some internal discussions and do another proposal. What are the core changes that you aim to make in that proposal, and which partners will be included?
Yeah, look, I think I don't think we're going to come back with a proposal that lists a bunch of partner names. We have a ton of partners, right? We work with Rain, we work with Layer Zero, we work with we work with everyone. Like, I really want to keep the focus on this to like, hey, we're trying to build USDH to be this kind of like neutral base layer asset in the Hyperliquid ecosystem, and the focus should be on that. We can talk about partners, totally work with all those guys. They're awesome. You know, we talk to them all the time. But I don't think our proposal needs to focus on that, in my opinion. And just because the feedback from the community we've gotten hasn't been like, oh, who's your, you know, on-ramp partner? Who's your debit card issuer? It's really more been around like, hey, how are you going to ensure you stay aligned with the community? How do you think about kind of some of this assistant fund stuff? And so I think some of our iteration will really be around kind of showing the community the balance in our thinking of, we want Hype holders to benefit. And so we can talk about this AF thing, but really outlining kind of like our perspective and learnings really of like, how do we grow this thing? Because you're right, it's just a ticker. You know, we can go build it and launch it and it sputters out and it's like, it was a waste of everyone's time. You know, if we're going to go build this, we want this to be the asset. We want this to be a multi-billion-dollar, $10 billion asset. And I want to make sure the community understands like our approach here, right? It's like, this is not just about us being like, oh, it's 95% or 97%. It's like, we have a plan of how we're going to make this really big. With the end goal of this fully benefiting the community and Hype holders, right? And like outlining that, I don't think we did, to be honest, the best job of outlining that journey we want to go on in our initial proposal. So I think a lot of the focus will be around that. Yeah,
I think that's a really good kind of follow-up point here, because Rob and I have been in the Hyperliquid community for some time now. You know, we were talking to our team in summer of 23, all the way into the token launch, and have you know, been big investors into the token, and just kind of like wanted to represent the community today. And I think like the main question that some of the prominent members of the community wanted us to ask is kind of aligned with what you're just saying, which is, okay, you guys have a plan, you guys want to grow this thing, but what is this like? What in this lens of your growth vision? What does being Hyperliquid native or aligned mean to you and Paxos, and how important is that versus being like big company, big institutional focused? How do you guys kind of navigate this kind of juxtaposition of two different types of communities and character archetypes and all of that? And you know, what does being Hyperliquid native and aligned mean to you in this lens of growth?
Totally. And I think a lot of this is why we created an entire new team. This is why Paxos Labs exist, to embody some of this kind of, you know, different ethos that you might see in a Hyperliquid like community than you might see like when you're working with giant enterprises. And I think, you know, I can't point to anything else besides like the team that is actually working on this has been on Hyperliquid since day one, right? They have been the team that's built infrastructure behind 𝘭𝘆, behind 𝘭𝘆𝘵, has actually worked with multiple stablecoins in the ecosystem, including USDT0, including USDHL, as a part of the 𝘭𝘆𝘵 product. And so this team has been building in Hyperliquid since day one. And that's why we brought them on. We want that DNA. We want that team to be a part of the team that goes on this USDH journey. And so we get to benefit from a lot of Paxos's expertise background, history, regulatory, compliance, legal, banking, everything that you would want from a world-class issuer. But we have a dedicated team. I'm here in the office with them in Williamsburg. We have like our own spot, Paxos Labs. We're together every day in person, and this team like kind of lives and breathes this ecosystem, and hopefully the community can see that with all the contributions they've had to date.
Yeah. One last thing in your proposal, the last paragraph says, regardless of the outcome of this community vote, you're committed to continue building in the Hyperliquid ecosystem, stay aligned with the ecosystem-led philosophy. And so, obviously the partnership that you mentioned with the team there, is there anything else that you have in mind, for if the vote doesn't go your way? What else do you have here that you have in mind as far as like how you're going to continue to support the ecosystem? Anything that you haven't mentioned already? Yeah,
I mean, look, I think, and this is why kind of like we think stable coins are so important, is like we think they're the foundational asset in any ecosystem. We still plan to bring a stable coin to Hyperliquid regardless how this vote goes. But again, like to my point in the beginning, like Paxos has a lot of experience issuing stable coins. I think the thing that we really want to show is like and then what, right? And we're going to build products around that stable coin, whether that's unique yield bearing products, whether that's different ways to kind of take out leverage. I think there's like the utility on the stablecoin after is just as important as like getting to that day one of compliant regulated stablecoin issuance, again, which we are very good at and we have the best track record in the world of doing. But what we're out here to prove is like we are going to build products that complement and grow that asset even further and grow stablecoins in the ecosystem. And so that's what we're really looking to do, and that's kind of what Paxos Labs is all about, and that's why Paxos created Paxos Labs.
And Bo, when it comes to actually seeing the fruits of the stablecoin kind of like growth here, what would you say is your multi-year vision for this stablecoin? Like Hyperliquid is aiming to be the chain to house all of finance, kind of TM, right? Soon TM. What is the 1, 3, 5 year potential kind of outlook for where you think Paxos can take USDH, and thus how you can help impact the community over the next 1 to 3 years?
Yeah, totally. And I think this is honestly the strength of Paxos's proposal, right? It's how do we take this beyond just an exchange asset? How do we take this beyond just an asset that you trade with? I mentioned before, right? Like some of our stable coins are already settled by Visa. We're working with the largest payment networks. We're working with the largest payment processors. We have on and off ramp providers in every corner of the world. And so the goal is like, yes, this is going to be a core asset on Hyperliquid and the exchange, but how do we get to a world where people are getting paid in USDH? How do we get to a world where people are buying their groceries with USDH? How do we get to a world where people are saving in USDH? And by people, I don't just mean crypto native users. I mean the user that doesn't even know there's a stablecoin in the background, right? They're using their mobile app in some developing country. How do we get USDH to be the asset behind that? Right. And again, like the value prop there is like, not only are we giving people something they want, the demand for tokenized dollars is massive. We're driving the benefit of that adoption and distribution back to the Hyperliquid ecosystem, right? And hopefully creating a really virtuous flywheel. Because we agree, we think Hyperliquid is going to be a central part of kind of the financial system of tomorrow. And that's why we're here. And that's why we're going to keep building.
And just one last thing for you. You mentioned that some of the thought process was, okay, we want to further allocate into this space, into Hyperliquid. Is there anything that you can kind of share on that, at least what's going on in the background, or at least kind of in your thought processes as to, all right, we want to be owners of this ecosystem as well and participate in, Hyper EVM, the DeFi apps there, as well as be users of Hypercore. When you mentioned that, you guys want to come in, with some size into the ecosystem, maybe you could just elaborate on that a bit.
Yeah. So we have our existing products right now with LHype and WHLP, and we're going to keep investing in those and growing those assets. I think what we really are interested in doing, beyond the stablecoin stuff, I do think there's some interesting partners that we're talking to right now in the Hyperliquid ecosystem, where we build utility on top of either Hype or Hype stablecoins, right? And so again, like this goes back to kind of the mission of Paxos Labs and why it was created, is like we're here to kind of like build the like utility that comes after having the asset, right? And so a lot of the conversations we're having with the ecosystem are around that, right? Like unique yield opportunities on stable coins, unique looping strategies around hype. And I think taking kind of like, great, you have the base asset. How do I do some more stuff with that? It is kind of where our heads are at.
Yeah. So certainly a massive opportunity here. Like NASDAQ and, is talking about bringing all of these markets on chain, and Hyperliquid is a great destination for a lot of those markets to land. So it's $5.5 billion of stablecoin liquidity in Hyperliquid markets. Now, who knows where this is going to end up 6, 12, 18 months from now. Best of luck in the proposal, and thank you so much for coming on.
But actually one last thing for you, Rob, if you don't mind. 𝘗𝘁 was getting a lot of pushback about kind of like this Dragonfly influence, then them having their own stable coin, some of their team kind of giving giving pushback to Hyperliquid in the early days. I know we're all friends here, we're all in the same industry, but do you feel that 𝘗𝘁 has been unfairly kind of singled out on the timeline, or do you think that there's kind of some substance to there being a lot of moving parts behind the scenes of their proposal?
Look, I think to a certain extent they have been unfairly singled out, right? I think there are a lot of like, everyone is invested in everyone and everyone works with everyone in the space.
Yeah, in the space, like, yeah, exactly.
It's like anyone can dig up a conflict of interest if they dig deep enough, kind of thing. And so look, I know Nick and the 𝘗𝘁 team, I think they mean well. They've got like kind of the right mission. I know the Dragonfly team, and I think they really are believers in this. And so to a certain extent, yes, maybe they've been unfairly called out, but that's just kind of like the world of Twitter today. It's like someone finds a thread and they pull it until can't be pulled any further.
Yeah. All right, Bo. Thank you for your time, man. I appreciate it. We'll see you soon, and
thanks for having me on, guys.
Enjoy the week. I know it's going to be slammed.
It'll be a fun one.
Sure.
Take care, guys.
See you, Bo.
Cheers. Well, Rob, thoughts, takeaways?
I think Paxos has a strong proposal.
Yeah. That their stablecoin success in the past. They should have just done 100%. I don't get why they not just do 100%.
Yeah, I mean, how significant? I guess when we extrapolate out, I mean, $5.5 billion of stablecoin liquidity now. This is gonna end up doubling, tripling, quadrupling in the near future.
Yeah, how much does it really matter? Right. So we said there's 200 million on Hyperliquid, right, or something? Right now,
There's
I think it's
$5.5 billion of USDC. Yes, primarily USDC on Hyperliquid now. Once they launch USDH, all of that's going to get collateralized. They're going to generate interest on the reserves
on the $5.5 billion.
Exactly, 4% of that is going to give them about 220 million. I think that's math
per year.
Yeah.
No, 4%
of $5.5 billion. Someone with a calculator.
Someone ChatGPT that. Come on, you're the math guy. Up next, we have Sam. Get back to us on that, Rob. Sam is the Frax founder, who has just updated their proposal. We got the updated link here from one guy on the Frax team. I believe it was their head of comms. And yeah, we saw some of the updates. Really, the big thing being the federal regulated bank issuers. So, guys, you know the vibes. We are going to roll into Sam's opening remarks, give him a chance to kind of open up, and then get into the questions that we've asked each guest here. We're just going to give Rob one more second to give us the final calculation here. I think he's dialed in right now. Sam, good to have you.
220 million. So we are doing math.
Okay, good. Well, that's a lot of profit to be made. So, Sam, good to have you.
Welcome to the show.
What's up, guys? Happy Monday. It's good to be back.
Yeah, man. Busy weekend for you, I bet.
A lot. Yeah. Well, exciting weekend. There's so much stuff going on with this that I'm almost like holy crap, it's going to be like every day there's going to be a bunch of stuff coming out, and then it's going to be over before everyone even knows it,
Yeah. I was talking to Rob from Dragonfly about it, and he was like, yeah, it's just going to only get more dramatic. And I think part of that is you guys changed your proposal today or updated it. Let's say Paxos Bo just came on saying that they're going to update their proposal shortly and release that. So we've started the first two with just kind of an opening remarks. Would love to get your perspective for Frax's USDH vision, kind of how, like, what the storyline is for kind of inserting or, you know, entering up proposal here, and just kind of open the air for us here.
Yeah, for sure. So let me actually give some background of like how we got here as like Frax. As a lot of people might know from like last cycle, Frax is one of the biggest decentralized stablecoins when we launched, right? The original Frax decentralized like dollar stablecoin. We went all the way up to 3 billion or just under total supply. So we really do have the infrastructure, knowledge, engineering, integrations to run a multi-billion-dollar stablecoin. We actually started moving more towards a regulated and Genius compliant model, as you guys know, with Frax USD, FRX USD, which we started actually working on this in 2024, before like the Genius Act or the name or whatever actually even became a big thing, because we believe that the base underlying digital dollar of like an ecosystem should be basically risk-free. You can build the yield stuff on top of it. I think that structural bet looks like it's probably correct, because you can see Athena also having USDTB, which is really cool, right? If you didn't need that, right, why would you even have like an underlying base, right, like risk-free fiat coin essentially, right? And one of the cool things was when the Genius bill started to take form, right, with the new administration, I actually went to DC with Travis, my co-founder, and we actually helped directly do a lot of the definition of a Genius stablecoin, a payment stablecoin, all of this stuff, and we've been very, very active actually in the regulatory space. So we built this infrastructure for Frax USD. We have a full 20 chain mesh coverage, right? That's powered underlying by layer 0, but it's a sovereign hosted version where the OFTs, everything they're underlying, owned by whichever entity that they want. We own the Frax USD. USDH can be owned by Hyperliquid, you know, hype holders, stakers. And the interesting thing is we thought, well, we have this infrastructure, we have the engineering and the name brand and the Lindy and the resources that was previously a $3 billion decentralized stablecoin that everyone knows as a household name in DeFi. Why not open this up and allow other stablecoins to actually be used and issued through this infrastructure and with our partners, right? And so when we started working on Frax USD, we obviously approached institutional RWA issuers that are Genius compliant, institutions that can actually issue different kinds of Genius compliant collateral, like 2A-7 money market fund securities, treasury bills, all of these things that are required to have a fully risk-free compliant fiat coin, right? And so we have these relationships, this infrastructure, the audited smart contracts, all of it. And so we said, well, this doesn't only have to be for Frax USD, right? Like we don't have to just actually do all this work for just Frax USD. And so we started actually thinking, what are the entities? And this is a few months ago, by the way. Like we had no idea the USDH thing. I don't think many people did. That was going to come up last week or whatever, a few days ago. And so we started approaching different entities like, hey, we can actually help you issue your own and have it be one-to-one composable with all of the underlying. Frax USD is another stable coin, right? One-to-one composable. All of these RWAs that are Genius compliant, right? Like USTB from Superstate and Fidelity, BlackRock, BitL, all of these things, right? And so we can connect all this infrastructure in a one-to-one way. It's audited. It's Frax is like a prestigious and pristine history of no funds lost in any of our history, right? Like our 5-year history. And so why not open this up, right? This is valuable infrastructure, and being able to actually have multiple stablecoins be one-to-one fungible with each other is actually of unique value of money, right? The whole point of money is the more fungible and liquid it is between all the other things, the next marginal user that accepts it or holds it is more, has more utility, right, for that person. And so that was basically our vision. And so when this came out, obviously it surprised us, because I actually had talked to Julian, I believe he's like one of the Hyperliquid core team members a long time ago, like I think over 6 months ago, about something like this, where I was like, what is Hyperliquid's view on stablecoins? You guys obviously are a huge user of USDC. I don't know, like what one of my original thoughts, to be honest, was like maybe Jeff and Jeremy have some kind of like NDA and like secret like deal of like there just is yield share. I can't imagine mid 9 figures of like annual revenue. You're just like, nah, whatever, right? So like I was like, I would love to help if I could just know I'm not here to sell you anything. Yep. In fact, like I want to know what like a visionary guy like Jeff or you guys at Hyperliquid, what are you guys think? How are you guys thinking about it? Like educate me. And it didn't seem like, at least from what I was told, obviously like they might have internal plans or something. I don't know. Now actually it seems like they're totally true and transparent. It's like they're like, we're not thinking about it right now. When we're thinking about Bitcoin stuff, you'll know. And obviously, I think now
200 million is on the table at current numbers.
Well, 200 million for the Hyperliquid community, as it should be, right? And so that's actually kind of important because I think Frax was the first one, if I remember, to just be like 100% no yield share like intake, right? And I think like that is kind of important because I think you were asking Bo, who I love. We've talked a lot, actually. We're trying to figure out how we can work together. This is one of the things that I was figuring out in terms of like philosophically. This stuff, obviously Hyperliquid is the biggest prize, but like, because it's obviously one of the biggest L1s in ecosystems in the crypto world. But I was thinking about it more generally from like a economic perspective. And I was like, if here's a thought experiment, if you had the right to issue all like genius compliant stablecoins, like Robbie and Andy, like let's say for some reason like amazing, the law kind of gave that to you, in exchange you cannot take any revenue yield share from it, okay? Or nor can you charge like redemption, mint fees or whatever, just nothing from it. It kind of, you are in trying to give this as a public good, so to speak, okay? Would you take it? Would you accept that? And everyone had to go through you, right? This is the thought experiment, right? The deal is they go through you guys, okay? You are the only issuer allowed to do this, like, in a regulated manner, because that's sort of de facto what's going on here. Even though they're like this, the USDH ticker, there'll be other stablecoins, of course there will, but like the reason everyone is so gung-ho about like pushing and competing here is like this is most likely going to be the Hyperliquid stablecoin, right? Unless it really falls or something, right? So
I mean we would, right?
Just finish up. Would you take the actual right to issue it? And I would. If I was like, Sam is the only one that can issue genius compliant stablecoins, you are not allowed to legally take any revenue or mint redeem fees, right? But you're close to all of the flows. You're close to all of the flows that come in and out. You are essentially the clearinghouse for all genius compliant stablecoins. Would you take it, but you're not allowed to take any revenue from it? I would. I don't know. Maybe some people would be like, oh no, like the only reason I would ever be interested in this is like if I can skim some T-bill yield off from the top or something like that. That's also like a legitimate potentially answer, but I would take it.
So Sam, you're saying the fulfillment, doing something meaningful, providing this service to the entire ecosystem, a very valuable service, that philosophically is enough for you to commit time, effort, resources? Or are you saying there's another method, an alternative way to monetize the flows, and that is how you're able to capitalize on providing this service?
Both, right? Like this is not like a charity. I'm not saying like that, right? But what I'm saying is that clearly, like just logically thinking about it, everyone is giving either 95 or something close to that, or like 100, like even like the first one, just say 100. Getting to be the in and out of the flows of one of the most important economic L1s is by itself valuable, right? And so that's actually what I was trying to say online as well, is like one of the most important things is to see who is actually a responsible steward, and like who actually what will they do with it, right? Will they actually help onboard more people that they wouldn't necessarily come to Hyperliquid. Like a lot of the things is like, you know, Frax is very, very good at DeFi, right? I think everyone knows that. In fact, like one of the first times when PYUSD launched from Paxos and PayPal, we actually helped them figure out how to navigate all the curve and DeFi stuff. And so I think one of the first PYUSD pools was actually a Frax and PYUSD stablecoin pool, actually. And so we are always at the forefront of like DeFi stuff. Obviously now it's more, we've leaned in on the frontier of like regulated payments, like risk digital dollars as well. I think obviously just being transparent, other teams might have like a stronger background in that area, right? Because they've started from there. But I think our DeFi crypto engineering, getting builders that would not otherwise come somewhere, are unmatched from the other, you know, the other guys.
This is something we were talking about before we had any guests on today, which was that the cultural fingerprint of, like, the cultural identity of Hyperliquid is one of airdrop farmers, power users. These are people that are engaged in on-chain DeFi. And I think that suits a crypto native company at the frontier of DeFi more so than it might suit a more buttoned up corporate company. Even though there might be more experience there, it actually more aligns with the community to go after and partner with a company that's more crypto native, and it's done this before on these rails rather than done it in the more regulated, compliant way.
Yeah, and but at the same time, yes, that's correct. But I'd go even a step further too and say, like, it's interesting because how fast the proposal stuff is going. Because on another level, like when we gave our like revised proposal today, like we actually clarified about how we would work with a chartered bank issuer to issue this. And then we work with Stripe and Bridge. They've been our orchestration partner, right? Same with, I think Stripe and Bridge works with the Frontier Markets team. I think that they were one of the original proposal by Max Fiege, I think. What I was thinking the other hour was like, a lot of these partners, regardless of who wins, right? Who's like name, it's not like they would refuse to like participate, right? So like if we win, right, Stripe and Bridge will work with us because they're already working with us. If they win, I think they would work with it. And I know certain people have different payment processor preferences or whatever, and there's like different concerns here or there. But the point is, if you ask, right, the point is they're all interested in being close to the flows, right?
Yeah, of course they're.
Yeah, and so the real thing you have to ask is, who's going to be a responsible steward of being close to the flows? And is there anything unique between any of the current ones that are some intangible strengths, like getting builders to come that would not have otherwise came? Or would there be, I don't know, extra things that other partners would not actually be able to do, right? Because I think all of us can make it Genius compliant. Frax USD is like compliant. We're working with actually like a issuer that will announce. This happened so fast that we can't actually say everything that we want to. But I think Genius compliance is like done. Is a done deal. If like you're competent, like the Paxos guys, the world class, you know, everyone else, we know what to do. That's not really like that big of a deal. It's like table stakes, right?
Right.
Yeah.
With 100% yield share, that's kind of table stakes. Okay, 95%. I don't think that's going to be make or break or anything. You know, that's why we even said 100, because I'm like, why even be asked like about the last five bips or something, right? The most important thing is who can actually bring a coalition, essentially a coalition of the willing of builders, regulated entities, which I think everyone can, payment processors, which I think most people can just because it's Hyperliquid, and who can actually create new innovative ways of making the most value for the Hyperliquid community by being close stewards to the flows, right?
Right. And so when you're talking about being a steward of the flows, this is essentially scaling Hyperliquid beyond and USDH beyond its current capacity. And so how would you get, and just to frame this completely, I think both of the proposed issuers that came on earlier in the show, Nick from Agora and Bo from Paxos, has both talked about Rain as a debit card partner to like they're plugged in with Visa, they can help expand that network. Is there a unique value proposition that you got? How will you guys steward USDH to help expand USDH beyond the Hyperliquid ecosystem and essentially grow this pie so that the flows are greater than what Hyperliquid's already built themselves?
Yeah, so here's the first question I'd pose back first before answering. Have we gotten the Rain guys, who are an awesome team, to say, hey, if Agora doesn't win, we refuse to work with USDH? Because I don't think they're going to say anything like that, right?
Absolutely
Definitely not.
Right. So that's not right. So they, both of these guys said it, which makes it not unique. So it's almost like we're looking at these proposals and we're looking at the checkboxes like, okay, well, they both have that. They both have that. They both have 100%. It's all Genius compliant. So where's the uniqueness in these proposals?
Yeah, well, I'll tell you some examples where the uniqueness of these proposals. For example, what if one of these proposals, like Frax, maybe someone else, maybe like Athena, seems like they're going to propose something I've heard the rumblings of, but what if our idea for USDH is close to a consortium-based issuer, so that we first start, right, as if we win, for example, the proposal, but then we actually get as many issuers in a novel Genius compliant structure to be able to actually plug into USDH and as a extension, the Hyperliquid network, right? Because they have to add Hyperliquid support, all this stuff, so that it is kind of like even a better Libra, right? Like which everyone's talking about recently because of like tempo and this and that, and they build it in a way where you use Hyperliquid's distribution and size to push the frontier of like a specific design where you can get as many issuers to onboard, be able to mint and redeem, to be able to get additional DeFi people to deploy on Hyperliquid because of this structure, getting unique flywheel incentives, for example, that we're known for, but obviously Athena is even bigger right now, right? To be transparent, right? They're known for it as well, right? And so these are the things that are intangible, right? That are unique if you dig through the proposals between each other, right? Right? These are like between the lines of like, you have to kind of imagine what would stuff look like in a year, right? If Paxos won or Frax won or Athena, I think they're going to announce whatever they're going to do soon, right? And if Frax wins, I think the one thing to take away is that we would be trying to align as much of the participants as possible in an area where they integrate Hyperliquid as a network. They integrate USDH across a wide range of places in ways that, like, for example, native consortium mint redeems with Genius compliant issuers, right? Additional DeFi that we don't see, for example, on Hyper EVM, but that we have connections to in our wide DeFi network, right? Those kind of things are kind of the intangible things that, like, just putting up a bunch of logos is not going to do.
Yeah.
Right?
Sam, what does being Hyperliquid native or aligned mean to you guys, and how important is that versus being a kind of big company, institutional focused? And I asked this in a more pointed way, which is that there has been pushback from Paxos and Agora about other teams that have their own chain or ecosystem or products trying to come in and kind of like vampire attack some of what Hyperliquid has already built. You know, what is your vision for being Hyperliquid native and aligned, and kind of how do you fend off this kind of vampire attack accusation?
That's an interesting question, because I would love to actually ask, how would that even be possible? Like how exactly, what would we even say to get people to leave the largest perp like exchange ecosystem? And like that's kind of what I mean in terms of like being responsible stewards, because it's like that's so like interesting but egregious that it's like I feel like it would, we would not, no one would be that stupid to even kind of try to do anything like that, because the whole point of this is like, the more value you can create by being responsible stewards to the flows in and out of Hyperliquid, the more everyone benefits, right? The more everyone can come to Hyperliquid, the more hype token integrations there are in different places. Like the mere fact that, like, you know, people are like, oh, Stripe just announced Tempo and stuff, but Stripe is totally willing to literally integrate like Bridge, the Bridge guys, right? They're willing to integrate anything with like USDH and stuff and work with them. Just shows like everyone wants to integrate this. You just need a responsible like group of people at the top, to make sure everyone is like aligned. That's the real thing that I think the proposal needs to look for, is like a responsible steward. And the other thing I'll say about this is like, I thought about this last night, where let's say Frax doesn't win. Okay, great. Like, you know, someone else, amazing. Like, I'm very happy for whoever wins. We would still love to work with them in a structure that we're envisioning. So hopefully they envision the same thing, and like positive sum of bringing as many people in like a coalition to responsibly like look over and build around the massive flows. But obviously then that's their choice, right? Whoever wins, like they could decide, no, like that we have a different view of like how this will work, right? And so one of the things that I think is really important is, how can we get the most number of people to responsibly work together to increase the size of the Hyperliquid pie for hype holders, right? If this is the ecosystem that we're all very excited to actually build on and actually make bigger, because of how special it is, how big it is, how wide of a distribution it has, how amazing of a deep product it has in Hypercore with the perp DEX.
Yeah. And just one last thing for you, Sam. Why is this ticker in particular important to you guys? Like, theoretically, you can buy a different ticker in the future for, and get all the same perks, perp margin access, spot pricing markets. Why is this USDH ticker important to Frax?
Honestly, the ticker is not that important. To be completely clear, and I know the Hyperliquid guys like made it as, oh, this is just for the ticker or whatever. Like, guys, don't, no one get too flustered. Like, there's going to be a bunch of other stable coins. We all love each other, yada, yada, yada. I think like the important, like, clear thing, there's a reason. And everyone, if you guys are having like an immediate like emergency live cast of this competition, all this stuff, is it de facto the Hyperliquid stablecoin? The ticker could be whatever else too, right? It could be Moodang or whatever USD, right? So like, but the main thing is the alignment of the entire Hyperliquid, the foundation, the core team, this stuff, the community, right? This is basically a massive Schelling point, right? This event is a massive Schelling point, and king like legitimacy like event of who actually is the socially agreed on steward to the flows and stuff. We don't actually mind what the ticker is. In fact, like I was saying, I was talking to Julian and some people from Hyperliquid months ago about what's your guys' strategy. And so the feeling I got was that they're still figuring it out. And transparently, that's what it sounded like. They were saying the truth, like they'll figure it out later. And this seems like is what they're going with, which is really cool. I actually think this, regardless of who wins, this will actually set a very, very great precedent of how to do these things. Like earlier today, I saw Athena and Mega ETH. I don't know if you guys saw that. They announced like USDM. Yeah. And that's super cool. And that's awesome. And actually somewhat jealous of Guy. Good work. I am an investor in Athena, full disclosure. So I'm
jealous of you.
But at the same at the same time, though, I was like, well, if we knew that existed, I wish the Mega ETH team did something similar to like Hyperliquid. Why not just be like, hey guys, like we're thinking about this instead of doing this like behind the scenes or whatever.
Just put it out there for everybody to get the best deal.
Exactly. And so, like,
give us some entertainment while you're at it. You know what I mean?
I think
something
this
to talk about.
Precedent-setting event for, I think, everyone can probably think of. Obviously, like no one is as big and systemically important as Hyperliquid, where it's like a top 10 coin, the biggest like DEX in the entire world. This is like the S tier of like, it's like the Super Bowl of stablecoin issuance competitions, right? But I think there will be, like NCAA championship kind of case as well.
Yeah, like bracket style. No, I mean, look, I think there are going to be a couple more entrants. You mentioned Athena. Maybe we get one or two, but the time's coming up. I mean, we're about 48 hours away from the proposal being, set on. So,
Sam,
guys,
I just got one last thing for you, and we hadn't asked the other two potential issuers this, but I think we'd be remiss if we didn't talk about Circle a little bit and what 𝘗𝘳𝘬𝘀 put up on Twitter and kind of reposted a blog post from a couple months ago. Any thoughts? I don't want to put you on the spot, but I am just curious. Like, it seemed like his proposal kind of fell flat. People were saying you made a mistake. You got a couple days to fix it. They're in the position where they've got the $5.5 billion. They've got the foothold, but they're at risk of losing it. If you're 𝘗𝘳𝘬𝘀, what do you do?
I would love, this is why I started talking to the Hyperliquid team like months ago, because I was like, honestly, at first I was like, do these guys just have a secret deal with like Circle to just like yield share almost all of the thing? But the condition is like, sign this NDA and don't tell everyone, because then everyone will go to Circle and be like, do it for us because you did it for them. I guess it does not appear that they do, or they might actually, and they might use this competition to go back and be like, yo, like actually, we want 100%, or like, you're screwed, right? But I would actually love to see 𝘗𝘳𝘬𝘀 just come out and be like, okay, guys, like you're upping the ante. Circle will just give 100%, 90, 95% or whatever, and see what happens. I would actually love to see Circle commit like nearly 100% or close to 100% yield share, the same way we know they have it with Coinbase, right? USDC on the Coinbase platform, Coinbase gets 100% of that, right? And again, good example. Look at how beneficial that is. I know people look at the S1 filings and stuff being like, look how much they're paying to Coinbase, but Coinbase king-made USDC by having basically the official on-off ramp for dollars in and out of USDC, right? And so that's a perfect example of like, look, there's a deal that Circle doesn't get any like revenue from, but clearly it's symbiotically beneficial. Clearly, no one would say Circle is not benefiting from that in some way, right?
If Hyperliquid could make Circle bend the knee like that, it would just be the just epitome of DeFi's power, and just of the status that they've reached as a chain, as a protocol. Sam, just closing thoughts. We're running low here.
For sure. So last thing to reply to you, and then closing thoughts is, I think that's a good way to take it. But if everyone says it like that, I think 𝘗𝘳𝘬𝘀 wouldn't do
it. Yeah. So maybe that's not the right way to say it.
So the way that I would say it is like 𝘗𝘗𝘬𝘀 would come out and like basically Mortal Kombat KO combo.
Just absolutely destroy everyone. Yeah.
I would love to see that.
Yeah.
But anyway, the closing thoughts I think I would leave everyone with is, the most important thing is not the Genius compliance, because I think everyone that is in the short list is competent enough. When they say they're going to do it, they're going to work it with the proper structures. The other thing is not obviously the yield share, because 95, 100% completely, everyone is basically matched or thinking they're going to be matched. And I don't think that 5 bips is going to be the thing that's going to, the last straw that's going to break the camel's back. The most important thing is, what are the intangibles, right? Everything that looks kind of different on paper, like, oh, they have like rain cards, great. But I'm pretty sure the rain cards would integrate this, right, as well. Same thing with us. We work with Stripe and Bridge, but then so does the other proposal earlier, and then maybe another proposal later, right? Stripe and Bridge is going to be willing to be the integrator. The most important thing that I leave everyone with is, who is going to be the most responsible stewards and positive sum of the flows in and out of one of the most important ecosystems to ever exist in crypto, and will increase and maximize the coalition that feels they have a stake in making this the biggest pie possible, right? And whoever the Hyperliquid community, the validators and the hype holders vote, regardless of whether it's frags or not, the point is, we would love to work with them if we don't win, because again, our vision is, we want to actually be a part of making sure that this is one of the best, the most positive sum in and out flows of USD regulated stables in the world.
Beautiful. Sam, thanks for your time, man. Look forward to the next 48 hours. I know it's going to be crazy for you.
Awesome. Thanks.
We're rooting for you,
guys.
Sam. Thanks, man.
Speak soon.
See ya.
Alrighty, Rob. Quick turnaround here. We got David ready to join, but yeah, man. What is your, now that we've gone through all of the 3 main proposals outside of Max, we're still missing the native markets one. What is your quick objective takeaway, and then we'll get David up.
Man, I'm bullish hype.
I'm bullish stablecoins. I'm bullish hype. Yeah, I mean, it doesn't even matter who wins. Honestly,
No, I think Sam made a pretty good point. Like, look, we've got all of these infrastructure partners that are battling it out. Most of the ones, aside from the issuers, are going to win regardless. Layer 0, Rain, EtherFi, all the issuers, Paxos, Frax, Agora, they're all talking about using the same infrastructure partners. And I think Sam makes a good point that even if someone like Agora wins or Paxos or Frax, whichever one of them wins, the other issuers can still play a role in this ecosystem as supporting consortium partners. So
it will be very interesting to see if 𝘠𝘪𝘴𝘬 comes out with anything. We've got David Greider, head of
gonna have to make a stronger
finality.
proposal.
We're gonna get his take, start this off as well. His first time on the show. Let's get him up here. And yeah, man, let's talk crypto. David, good to see you, man.
Hey, Andy. Robert,
good to have you on.
Here.
It's a busy week in the Hyperliquid ecosystem. Happy all-time high day to those who celebrate. I don't know your position in this matter, but we can discuss. But man, I'm sure you've seen some of the stablecoin chat so far with USDH on the timeline. Hyperliquid wanting to expand to its own native stablecoin. First and foremost, we'd love to just get a brief introduction about yourself, but super curious to hear your thoughts about some of these L1s adopting their own native stablecoins. Mega ETH came out today and said, look, we're going to work with Athena to build MUSD. Very clearly the stablecoin trade, the stablecoin investment happening. So we'd love to hear your take on that. But first, who's David? How'd you get involved? And welcome to the show for the first time.
Yeah, absolutely. And there's going to be a lot of great topics to touch on. Yeah, so I run the liquid hedge fund at Finality Capital. And, I say we're not a crypto fund, but we're a hedge fund that invests across the digital asset industry, whether it's in the commodities like Bitcoin, ETH, other tokens, Solana Hype, or the derivatives, could be the equities, the companies, Coinbase, Bitmine, or it could be debt or equity across the cap stack. So we're pretty broad in that universe, both crypto and TradFi. And then, I've been in crypto a while, personally since 2015, started a small fund in 2017, 18, was head of crypto research for Tom Lee at Fundstrat. I know Bitmine's all the rage today too, with some of these recent deals that were announced. I was head of research at Grayscale. I've been investing in other funds as well for a while. And so run the liquid fund at Finality. So all things kind of liquid are our domain.
Amazing.
Yeah. On the hype point, look, I think, the most interesting thing you bring up a bigger topic, really, which is the most interesting thing that's happening in crypto is this TradFi convergence and the unshackling of regulation. And that's what's allowed all these companies to do DATs. And that's what's allowing, hype to get their own stable coin. And I mean, really, that's also what's allowing, whether it's the tokenization you're seeing today with NASDAQ, I think that's pretty exciting for everybody. I mean, it's going to be good. It's good for hype, potentially bad for Circle. Circle has some other things. I think it's 10% of, USDC is on hype. I don't think it's going to go away. I think there's going to be different trust vectors that, people are going to want to, own different stable coins for. So, it's going to be a competitive market. I mean, you always knew there was going to be more stable coins issued, both from the banks that are going to still be continuing to come, but also, it's interesting to see the DeFi natives getting out there and issuing stable coins. So, I think it makes sense for them, and I think it's good for the ecosystem as a whole.
Yeah, it's really just a big race right now for Hyperliquid. And I mentioned Mega ETH and this entire stablecoin trade. And then, the big outlier here is XPL trading pre-markets right now on Hyperliquid at $9 billion FTV. I mean, that thing's going to launch soon. And that's like the, pseudo tether equity play. So we saw Circle IPO be all the rage for a bit. And now I think we'll see this plasma token launch be all the rage. There's just a very clear demand for this business model and for investors to get exposure to this business model.
Yes, I mean, look, Tom Lee said it best. Stable coins are the chat GPT moment for crypto. we have a venture fund as well, I should mention, and I think we were seed investors in Athena. That's been a huge win for us. And we're still there, and that's obviously performing really well on the back of the stablecoin narrative, on the back of this TradFi convergence with the DATs, and obviously it's got a lot of partnership integrations as well. So yeah, it's the place traditional finance wants to move into and play, and it's great for adoption.
I'm curious from a more general standpoint on the liquid market. We've talked at length about the return to fundamentals, also about this revenue meta, and how a lot of these tokens that are doing well now, Hyperliquid is certainly one of them. Pump Fund also had another big jump. They're projects, protocols that have real revenue, and they're using that to pass value back to the token holders. There's only a select few of those tokens that exist on the market today. How much do you prioritize the real revenue of today? Is this just kind of a fad in the current timeline, or do you think this is going to be something that sustains and we're really not going to see significant upward movement in things that don't have a real revenue source right now?
Well, I think it's a real thing. It's obviously becoming much more, the industry is maturing, right? You're going from being startups to being more mature businesses. And then naturally the capital that comes in is going to demand more fundamentals, more product market fit, more, not just more revenue, right? Like I think, it's interesting to say revenue, right? The first thing we wanted was product market fit, users and transactions. Next thing we want is actual monetization, right? Turn on the fee switch and generate some revenue. But the next thing you really need to have, is people want like buybacks and economics. But also the next thing you have to have on top of that is, what is your actual net free cash flow, your profitability? Because you issue all these tokens on the other side. So your supply demand picture, even on that, isn't strong, right? And then finally, like the thing that you actually need to get to really, loop all that in and have a good multiple that you can apply to any of these things is durability, right? So even if you have, revenue, right? How durable is that revenue? And like, that's one reason why, DeFi protocols will trade at a much lower revenue multiple than a traditional, business like an exchange, like a Robinhood or whatever, because of the durability of the regulatory moat. And, it's kind of the same thing even in miners, right? Like they have lower multiples. They're really just data centers than the data center plays. But the variability with that, the durability of the income of the earning stream is, so you get lower multiples. So, I mean, I think that you've seen it in the performance of the tokens. Like there's data that shows that the baskets of fundamental tokens tend to outperform the non-fundamental tokens. And, like I'm a fundamental investor. I talk to and know all the other liquid fundamental funds. And, I know how those guys think and how they look at different projects. And that's really the key in this market, right? And I think the other thing that can't be overlooked is going to be this governance piece. And the fact that, before you wanted to invest in crypto, the only way you could do it was to buy tokens, because you couldn't get access really in the public markets, right? Because it was all closed out, right? So you had to buy tokens. Now you have companies that you can wrap a blockchain crypto protocol into a company. What's a good example of that? You have, so think about Lido, right? They've got an LST, right? That's great, and they're a DAO with a token. Well, you know who else has an LST? DeFi Dev Corp for Solana. They have a Solana LST. Oh, but they're actually a company with corporate governance, and the cash flows go to the shareholders, and you have reporting, and it's like so like there's the next thing that people really care about is going to be this like governance meta, and you want to feel good about like insiders aren't selling on you OTC when you're not supposed to. Like there's actual restrictions and disclosures. So I circle all this back to say there's now in TradFi.
Yeah, it's not
tokens.
just revenue. It's like, okay, revenue and like, hey, not all the shady stuff that's been happening in the space the last 6 years isn't happening here either. It's like this. It is a direct combination there.
Yeah, it's better. It's better from an investor standpoint, right? You can argue some of these things are inflated or this and that. You don't like the structure, but like at least it's disclosed and people aren't, they're following what they.
So I saw
be.
you put out a tweet. I think it was about Bitminer. Some two things. One being about, or Bitminer was about the NASDAQ tighter rules giving Bitmine some sort of competition or competitive moat, let's say. And then you also kind of then flip-flopped with something with when BMNR dipped, you wrote that he's either dead in the water or it's a great buying opportunity. Kind of, I think we're getting close to Tom Lee and Bitmine having that $10 billion capital value of ETH, the asset, meaning that theoretically they could then start to borrow from large commercial banks and issue some of these convertible debt notes, i.e. MicroStrategy, Sailor tactics. You know, this could then extend his buying power with Bitmine, then leading to a more positive flywheel, extending this ETH trade maybe, you know, to 7, 8, 9K, or, you know, he's calling for outrageous targets, but I think we can see it get there. You know, what is your take here on Bitmine now? Is it dead? Is it buying opportunity? How has your views changed? And maybe just educate our community a bit about how the NASDAQ rules have made Bitmine potentially a better opportunity than some of the other ETH stats, if that's the case. Genuinely curious here.
Yeah, I mean, just to start, full disclosure, we did invest in the private first round of Bitmine, and it's done really well for us. And you know, I think the reason it's done well is because they've executed so well on growing the ETH per share. I think there was like $4 of ETH per share when we did it. It's probably 40 today or around that. You can tack in a few more, you know, maybe $4 more for this deal they did that in this new AI company led by Dan Ives, the Worldcoin one. But you know, that really is the key for all of the DATs, right? Is how much can you grow the NAV per share? And the way that they've done that really well is they've run this, you know, the ATM, and the ATM is an at-the-market offering. It just means the company is selling shares into the market. Generally, that is a function of how much volume you generate, because you can only sell, you know, if you sell 100% of your volume, or, you know, whatever, 50, 80, 90 is you, then you're going to crush the stock. But he's so liquid, the stock is so liquid, these guys are raising, I don't know, call it 100 million to 200 to 300 million a day sometimes to buy ETH. And, you know, so the rule with the NASDAQ, or at least the concern that was raised by an article put out in the information, was that the NASDAQ is going to tighten the rules on DATs for issuing and selling shares, and require them to get shareholder approval before selling shares to buy crypto. Now, it turns out that there's still a lot of things that are up in the air about that, but it actually, I don't think it applies to this for the existing DATs. The thing that they're trying to stop is it's going to be for the new ones launching. The problem that happened was Story IP, that, you know, that token that Andreessen Horowitz backed, they backed a DAT, and they put a bunch of in-kind, I believe, in it, and that really created maybe a sour taste, because, you know, what you have is, you know, you have a VC going to a company, negotiating a deal, putting a bunch of in-kind lock tokens in, existing shareholders that are, you know, getting diluted on that deal, and they have, you know, they think they have a pharmaceutical business. They end up with an IP Story discounted token DAT, right, overnight, and they don't really know about it. You know, that's what they're trying to stop on that new issue front. So there's, like, you know, I don't think it's gonna stop the DAT. I think it's just like there's going to be limits on maybe 20% can be in kind and this and that on kind of the change of business for these before they require approval. And I generally also don't think that they'll impact the existing ones or the ones that go out via specs.
David, 1.65 billion in cash put aside for the Solana treasury that launched. I think it was announced last week.
He's coming for you.
Money, yeah, he's the leader over there. And they've publicly said that they're just going to basically ape all $1.5 billion of this into Solana. What's your reaction?
We called this a month ago. We tweeted about it. We told people about it. We knew it was happening. Yeah,
the rumor mill is strong on the Rollup. And so now, now that this is public information, David, I'm curious to get your reaction on it.
Look, I think that, you know, I mean, where's the stock trading today? I think it's maybe up 50%.
What's that? Soul's
right?
up 4.5.
No.
No.
Yeah, the ticker for Solana Strategies.
That's Forward Industries. That was the Galaxy multicoin. Look, I think the thing that you have to do. All right, so there's in the sequencing of these, there's two things. You raise the initial capital and then you buy the initial SOL. The market has kind of front run that to a degree, right? Because everyone kind of knew the $1.5 billion buy was coming for weeks now, several weeks, right? It's everywhere. And, when they execute on it, it takes a couple of days for the transaction to close. So maybe like they can buy by Thursday when the cash comes in or something like that. I'm not saying exactly, but that's generally the timeline for these. But the thing that you need to generate the aftermarket demand like ETH had with Bitmine, and like might happen with WorldCoin, given the price convexity of today's news, is that you need to have two things: a meaningful premium, well, three things: a meaningful premium, lots of volume, and an ATM that you can run to raise on that premium to then go buy the underlying. And so look, they've got step one. They got the cash. They're going to buy some SOL. How much is priced in and front and running and it gets sold into, like, sell the news? We'll see. I don't know. There's probably $1 billion that you can move the market with that. But on the secondary part, like they're up 60%, and there's decent volume, but you need to be able to start capitalizing on that. And the Bitmine one, when it launched, that thing went up to like 40x NAV. This other one today is like 40x NAV. And you can really push it down and really hammer the ATM on all that liquidity. So if they can prove they can do that, right, that's the next leg of what they need to accomplish for the executing and really moving SOL higher beyond just kind of.
Could you explain that third step one more time? This ATM is this the process of essentially locking in that higher price on the stock, the ticker's forward, and then once they're able to borrow against that, they can take what they borrow and they can put that into SOL, and that's what kind of creates this reflexive flywheel?
Yeah, no, you asked a good question. So it's not borrowing. What it is you're selling equity. So, you're selling shares of the company at a premium to the underlying asset value of the SOL that they have. So you're selling $2 of shares to go buy $1 SOL. So that looping, right? So let's see. Today the stock is traded $2 million, 2 million shares, 2.5 million so far. And let's just say we're about to the close. So let's just call it 3 million. And that's
because they're selling shares and not the underlying Solana. They're able to do it at the inflated price.
Yeah, that's right. And I'll be honest. They're not. The stock's up a lot today, but also there's not a lot of volume.
And that would hurt
2.65 million. Yeah.
Right. So even if you round it to 3, and then you say it's $27, right? Right. Like that's not a lot of volume. And if you can only do 0.05, they got to get those numbers up.
Yeah.
To use that meme. Those are rookie numbers. Yeah. You got to get those numbers up.
Yeah. The stock's up 64% today.
But there's not enough liquidity.
Right. So once they start to do these at the money, or excuse me, these ATMs, they start to sell some equity. The market's not going to be able to absorb the sales of those shares.
Yeah. Whereas Bitmine has kind of gotten past this problem.
Well, I wouldn't say past. It's an ongoing execution you have to do. But their volume, right? So they're doing $2 billion of volume a day, 2 to 4. Right. And then, instead of here, if you're doing 3 million, right, times, even $26, that's, less than 100 million volume versus, right. So, it's not impossible, right? Like if Novavax can get on CNBC and he can talk about it and they can get it up and going. But I think, the thing you have to do is the shares are going to register for the people who participated eventually. And, there's going to be a lot of crypto natives that probably want to put in $1 SOL and get 2 or $1.65 today and get out when that happens. So you have to raise the NAV before you register the shares, typically 30 days, right? And that's why you need to really be able to run it, because you want to bring it up, right? If the premium is $1.65, everyone's going to want to get out, right, as soon as it unlocks. So before everyone unlocks, you got to be able to raise that NAV.
And just to be clear on the unlock schedule, it's typically like a 60-day process with 2 tranches, one after a month and one after 2 months.
It depends. Usually it's you know, like Bitmine did it with a half in 30 days, or half at the first initial registration, half after. But sometimes they just do it at the initial registration. It actually it depends on it could depend on two things. Really, the SEC one, right? And you know, there's like a registration timeline because you have to file a registration statement and that has to go effective to be able to sell those, right? And then, you know, some of these deals will put like a clause in, like, you know, the company agrees to within 30 days file a registration statement, right? And then it doesn't always have to get approved immediately, but it can. And then sometimes they'll have an additional lock structure beyond that. So that's, you know, that's typically how they work.
And
now that's for the direct listings, right? There's SPACs. There are different models. Some companies go out through SPACs, or sorry, not direct listings, but the reverse takeovers. The reverse mergers. The SPACs have a different model where you have to close the transaction and shareholders have to vote, and that takes even longer.
So, David, from your perspective, is the DAT trade still interesting, or are you kind of you're in on Bitmine? You see it, but you're not really too interested in these other tokens or other DATs. Like, where are you at personally with the fund as far as your demand to keep participating in any of these deals?
Oh, well, you know, I think it's late, but you're going to see, you know, it depends on the first thing that matters is who's involved. I think this Dan Ives thing and Tom behind it was, you know, big for this other one today. Like, you're going to get outliers like that. And then there's going to be some assets. Maybe you just want to own the asset. And then sometimes you might like the structure. And those could be good to own as well. So it's like, there's opportunities. You just have to be picky and you have to identify them. And then but generally, like, there's so many every day. Like, everyone, it's late in that sense, you know, like they're starting to trade NAV discounts. I do think, though, you know, MicroStrategy was not included in the S&P last Friday. But it's only the stock. This is great. The stock is only down like 2% today. Do you know how bullish that is? That's so well. Look, the stock has traded down over the last month, right? Like 20% versus big. So the market was not expecting it, right? So it was clearly priced that it wasn't going to get in. But you know, Tesla stock now. So this is a similar situation to Tesla. They didn't get in the first go around, right? And it traded down 15% after it didn't get included. And then like a week or two later, it was backed up. And then into December, because the market said, okay, they didn't get September, but they're going to get December. Into December, it rallied. So the next catalyst, right? Now MicroStrategy traded the other way, right? Tesla traded up into it because market expected it and traded down hard and came back. But MicroStrategy traded down into this because the market wasn't expecting it. I think you could be bottoming here in MSTR, right? And they're also running the ATM again, so they're growing NAV per share. But like, so if MicroStrategy can bottom, you could raise the multiples again across the space, right? Because it's the bellwether, right? Everyone comps to what their multiple is. And so like, if there's going to be new life to this trade, at least for the existing ones, and to open the market again, all right? And don't get me wrong, there's a lot of stupid ones that people are trying to do. But it would be like MicroStrategy having a good rally and bottoming here as people start to finally price in. It's actually likely, maybe in some people's minds, that they can get in December, right? And that'd be a big key for this trade.
It's the same thing in the broader market where Bitcoin lifts all boats, or, you know, rising tide lifts the ships, and MicroStrategy is just like the DAT signal, right? And like their premium has decayed slightly over the last year or so, but yeah, the addition into the S&P would just signal such a strong. I mean, I could just see that being a very explosive kind of like, you know, BTC's at 140 in December or something, you know, I don't know, right? But let's say, you know, things go strongly into that, you know, that could be that could be quite an explosive kind of catalyst for what could be like a parabolic type of finish if we were to get that this time. David, one last thing for you. When you're analyzing the you know, kind of general lens here of the crypto market, seeing the rise of Hyperliquid, seeing Pump kind of have its move, seeing memes get kind of beaten down a bit the last several weeks to months. Athena is kind of coming back to life with their revenue. ETH, Sol, Bitcoin, a lot of the major DAT plays. there's just a lot of bifurcation that is happening that previously wouldn't really happen in the market. How are you expecting the next couple of months to play out with regards to this bifurcation, right? Are you seeing that the majors will continue to rally and having less of an impact on the smaller tokens? Do you think some of the smaller tokens will join the party? And generally, how are you looking at this bifurcated market as it exists today, and kind of creating a mental model for how to structure a portfolio in this climate?
I think for the cycle, Bitcoin's topped, but I think as a dominance trade.
Yeah.
Sorry, to be clear, as a dominance trade. Now I think you can go higher in the year, and I think you could get a buying opportunity in the next several months that could reset some of this, and that could be the reason you could have a bounce in Bitcoin dom. And but generally, what you're seeing is the flow out the risk curve, and this happens almost every cycle, but it's happening, in unique ways, right? Like it's not going to be as broad based. It's going to be cross asset into TradFi, and it's going to be fundamental, and it's going to be, asset specific. And I think that's the sign of a mature market, or a maturing market. And, macro is going to dictate a lot, right? Macro is what's got the capital window open for, some of these TradFi crossover capital to flow in. And that's what's flowing in and creating some of these, unique winners. And then, I think that's the stuff you have to really kind of analyze to think about how to position across this market.
Appreciate your time, David. Looking forward to having you on in a couple months again, and or sooner, and just get some more insights. Would love to have you on as a more recurring guest as we try to navigate these markets. I appreciate your perspective, and wild day today. I mean, Mega E stablecoin, Hyperliquid governance proposals, Ledger compromise, Solana DAT. I mean, it's a Monday, all right. So thanks for joining us, man.
Thanks a lot, guys.
Thanks, David.
Take care.
Wow.
What do you think?
Bitcoin dominance being topped for the cycle. I think he's spot on. I don't think Bitcoin's topped, but it does seem like, Hyperliquid going to all-time highs. Some of these Sol getting its chance to kind of run. It's tough to see. It's tough to see Sol not exploding here. We'll see what ETH does. ETH has been a bit weaker than previously, but it's just kind of hanging out. So, look, it's just good to get to hear from people who are investing at the bleeding edge in the liquid and venture, and just get their take. Up next we got OSF of Rec Drinks. These guys are smashing it, doing incredible work in the consumer era, or consumer sector, let's say. OSF has been a prime media figure as well on FOMO Hour. Works closely with Farouk on his Myriad market product as well. I like to think of them as being a part of the Pudgy Penguin playbook. I think these two guys are the only ones pushing the space in a big way forward on the consumer side with regards to physical products, real communities. So yeah, let's get OSF up, and then we can continue the Hyperliquid, Stablecoin, and Ledger conversation shortly. But OSF, welcome to the show, man.
Thanks for having me, guys. Pleasure to be here.
Fantastic.
Absolutely.
12 out of 10 setup right there, brother.
Well, I've run out of space to keep all the drinks in the kitchen, so I have to keep them in my office now, basically. So
more money, more problems. You know what they say, Rav?
I like the packaging too. The yellow and the purple pops.
That's the MoonPay drink we're launching very soon. So it's the first time people will see it on screen. And
I think I caught wind of an abstract drink. Abstract apple.
Mm.
Yeah.
This one right here is the abstract one. We did that one back in
Let's go.
yeah, did that back in April, I think.
OSF, do these have caffeine in them?
These don't at the moment.
Okay.
Moment. So these are just flavored sparkling water, like no caffeine, no alcohol, very little sugar, just pretty run of the road. But we are working on other products that we'll be releasing later this year and next year, which will be a bit different. So
awesome. Well, man, okay, so maybe for our community, it's kind of new, wrecked OSF, kind of what you guys are building. Maybe you can just lay the foundation for us, and then this can be a fun conversation. Kind of like, what is the whole brand? What has been your vision? How did this kind of come about?
Yeah, for sure. So, it came about in quite a random way. So our original project was an NFT collection called Rect Guy. which we launched
Yes.
like 3.5 years ago. It was back in 2022, and I did the art for it. Like I was the artist for it, and it really was just a side project. So I just spent evenings and weekends doing it. Had zero intention for it to be anything big. We had zero roadmap. It was even a free mint. Like we gave the entire thing away for free. Then everything nuked. Like markets crashed in 2022, and everyone kind of like got wrecked. So people found it as a place to come and drown their sorrows. And then I think over the next couple of years, we just built like a very, very strong community and a strong following. And we felt like Wrecked had a lot of potential as something beyond just an internet community and beyond just our Discord and whatnot. So, you know, inspired by Luca and Pudgy Penguins, we decided to go down the path of making a physical product. And we decided drinks because they're cheap to manufacture, you can mass produce them. And our goal is like, how do we get Wrecked, the brand, the logo, in as many places as possible? Especially with crypto, there's quite low-hanging fruit because there are events across the world throughout the year where you can have these drinks, and it's basically like, you know, free marketing. Everyone wants to drink something, you know, here's a drink, have it, and it has like a big Wrecked logo in front of it. Like it's just basically, you know, a bit of a Trojan horse for marketing. So yeah, we went down that path, and you know, fast forward to now, we've sold almost 1 million cans in the space of about 12 months, and it's all powered by our brand coin, which is Wrecked Coin. And the way that it works is every time you purchase drinks, you're able to earn some of this coin. Not the first consume to earn product. Like there's been tons of consume to earn products out there, and a lot of them have failed. But I think the difference for us is we built this brand and community and following for a long time, for years before we even launched the token. And then when we launched it, there was like a natural home for people to want to have it and be a part of it. So I think that's the key difference there. But yeah, that's kind of a quick run through in a couple of minutes, I'd say.
Awesome. OSF, we got a word from our tech guy. If you could just plug in your headphones, not sure if they're unplugged or not. But
They're plugged in.
Plugged in. All right, we'll keep rocking with it.
I'm just getting a little echo, I think. Do you have any speakers on?
No speakers. Wonder why.
Cool. Yeah, give me a sec here.
I'll just kind of sound off because I do remember going to Art Basel. Pudgy Penguin threw an Art Basel event. Great event. Super high quality. Tons of great people there. And it was one of the few events that I think transcended crypto lines. Like it wasn't like a crypto conference where it was just for crypto people. It was like went there, brought some friends, and had a great time. And then they were passing out these drinks, and it was Pudgy Penguins drinks.
Yep.
I was like, what? I couldn't really wrap my head around why Pudgy Penguins was, but I think Pudgy Penguins is one of the few brands in crypto that could pull such a thing off.
Yeah.
Because they were also actually have a plush Pudgy Penguins behind the screen here. And they're passing these things away, and it was all just the Trojan horse of the brand. And it really just kind of expanded my mind to like, okay, well, these brands are predominantly selling software products, but there's nothing that says these
I don't know if you're
brands can't
hearing
also
this
provide
over
hardware
speakers or
products
if you're only
as a
hearing us
way
on
of
the
building brand equity
headphones right now.
and building
Yeah,
a greater
only hear you
customer
guys on the
segment.
headphones,
So
so
super creative. You don't see any
Oh,
other
okay.
brands doing
So
this. I think
let's try one
it
thing.
is.
Wait, I think
At
I know
the
what's
top,
going on.
I mean, it's
OSF,
gonna
you're
sound weird,
watching
but
the
this is
stream
like the
live
original
too,
Bitcoin.
right?
Let me close that tab.
Yeah.
Like
Or
real
mute
hardware
that tab. I
products.
think that's what
uh,
it is.
Yeah.
from
I actually
crypto
did
companies.
have it muted.
So we're gonna get OSF right back up. He's just finishing up his audio stuff. But look, I mean, I think I'd like to get the Rec Drink sponsorship, so that way, like,
Let's go. So we
when
can sip.
when
I'm
I'm
sipping
sipping
on-
on the stream.
I got regular coffee here. I'm not sponsored
Well,
by
that's why
Hydro Flask.
That's why I asked if there's any caffeine in those things, because I was like, look, man, I wanna get into this. I want this Rec Drink sponsorship. We'll have to ask OSF when he gets back. Rob, I mean, look, we'll talk to OSF about this kind of community NFT equity dynamic.
I want to get.
Yeah.
I want to get his perspective on like what launching a chain means for a consumer brand, because I think we're, the
Launching a
roll up is
coin.
maybe closer. The brand coin, Rect coin, which they've launched ticker, hashtag Rect.
Yeah.
And so I think the roll up as a media brand is probably closer to this consumer, in this case a beverage brand. Even though there's physical products, I think we're closer to it than maybe a blockchain. And And so when it comes to launching a coin, it's like, what is the mechanism here? Like, why the
I hear ya.
coin? What's the value accrual like? And just kind of getting his.
I've been
getting
just
his
talking to
take
𝘱𝘯𝘀𝘀 about his pump fund streamer coin, and it's been a funny. All right, it's been a funny kind of couple days of talking about it. All right, we got OSF back. I think his audio is fixed. Sorry
Okay,
about that,
great.
folks. We'll get him up, and he's back.
OSF,
And-
we were just talking about a couple of things actually. One is
Yeah.
well, let's collab. I mean, I'm drinking coffee out of a hydro.
Yeah.
We're not sponsored by
I'm
hydro.
sitting here
Let's
drinking
go.
a Yeti. I mean, I could just be sipping wrecked every day.
We
on
will,
stream.
yeah, I'll hit you guys up afterwards. We'll definitely send you guys some drinks for sure. Definitely
Every
should
day
you
on
need to
stream.
get them on
I mean,
stream
we'll
for
just
sure.
be sipping. That's why I asked if there's a caffeine one, but I imagine there's like FDA requirements and more kind of headache when you start to put different things in the drinks.
Yeah, it's not as easy. When you just do sparkling water, it's pretty easy to roll it out. So caffeine products, energy products take more time. And, you know, especially these days, stuff like caffeine drinks, focus drinks, that kind of stuff is like quite massive, but just takes a bit of time. But yeah, we will get there for sure pretty soon.
Yeah, man.
Let's do it.
Well, dude, we're super curious about this brand coin, right? Like this idea of a token which represents some sort of speculative and community and brand value in a brand. I mean, look, like there aren't very many of them. I mean, I think we've already talked about, you know, Pudgy Penguins. We're obviously big fans there, but like there is this new idea of streamer coins and now brand coins. Maybe you could kind of unpack the philosophy of a brand coin and like how you see this democratization of, I guess, speculative ability of people's brands and ideas globally, and how you kind of see this in Rex case. I think you guys have a very strong community around this Rec token. It also had an insane run this last couple months. Talk to us about what this brand coin idea is and how you guys are harnessing this power with Rec drinks.
Yeah, look, I think it's very important for this world of meme coins and speculative coins and everything, right? Like, why does a traditional finance person usually buy something? Because they think it's cheap. Why do they think it's cheap? Because they're using some sort of valuation model based usually on cash flows to deduce that this is cheap versus where it's trading, right? Now, if you have something like a meme or a creator coin, how do you value that, right? Like, it's hard. You can't really judge the cash flows. Like, maybe you can look at volume and, you know, the rewards it generates, but it's very hard to judge that, right? It's completely finger in the air, but it doesn't mean it's valueless, because people have sentiment. People sometimes they want to buy something to express sentiment, rather than just being like, oh, I want to buy it because my valuation model says this and this is what my quant says, right? That's not how every human thinks or reacts. So, you know, with every single company in the world or every single brand, you have something called your intangible brand value, right? It exists for everyone. Why did I buy that $50 t-shirt instead of the other $50 t-shirt? Because I like the brand. I like how it looks, or I like how it makes me feel, or I like the brand messaging, or whatever it is, right? And every company has an item on their balance sheet called goodwill, which is their intangible value of the brand, right? Coca-Cola has an $18 billion line item on the balance sheet called goodwill, which is the result of the premium they've paid for that acquisitions over the net asset value. So it's a real concept in traditional corporate finance, but it's something that people can't trade, right? It's like, it's governed by a one-off transaction by two parties. It's impaired by an accountant over time. And it's just this value on your balance sheet, this number on your balance sheet that is intangible and fixed, and you can't do anything with it, right? But with crypto, why would someone buy Retcoin if it doesn't own the equity, it doesn't directly benefit from revenues, doesn't own the IP? Why would anyone want to buy it? Because they like the brand, they like Rex. You know, it's like the whole Roaring Kitty meme, right? I like the stock. Like, that's the only reason why they would buy it. But that is, you know, you can equivalate that to, this is the intangible value of our brand. Why would someone want to buy it for any other reason? Because they like the brand. That's it. That's the reason, you know, why someone buys it. That's the reason why lots of people buy it. And I think that's a really important concept that most traditional finance people can't get their head around, but are now starting to really understand. And that's what's driven a lot of price action in crypto, like something like SPX, right? People believe it's, yeah, sure, it's crazy, it's at 1.5 billion or whatever, but like, that's because there's enough people out there who believe in that as a movement. It's kind of like a brand, kind of. It's not really a brand, but it's
Added
a movement.
to Coinbase today.
Yeah, exactly. So, you know, it's a real thing. And by the way, if you disagree with it, fine, because millions of dollars of volume go through every single day, and you can go out there and short it. You can literally take the other side of it. There is a market for it. There's a market that trades every single day. So I think it's a really powerful concept. And I think, you know, for a challenger brand like us, like for us to compete with Coca-Cola or Pepsi, etc., like it's pretty hard to do that, right? But this unlocks a lot of value for your brand and it allows you to do interesting things. And for us, the token's gone as rewards to our early supporters who have made money on it and will continue to do so if we do well. So it really aligns your consumers with your vision and kind of makes them into stakeholders. So I think it's a very powerful concept. I'm not saying anything new, right? All this stuff has existed in crypto for many, many years, but I think we've just applied it to a traditional business and product that people understand. And what I found with this messaging for a brand coin is like everything in crypto, when I try to explain to my normie friends, they don't get it. But this is the first thing I just explained to them, and they're like, oh, I get this, right? Like it's like loyalty points, but I can actually sell them and get real money for it. Like it's a very simple concept, but unlike loyalty points, it's not unlimited. There's a fixed supply, and you can actually trade it and get your money for it. So I think it's a very powerful concept. There are a few other examples out there, and I think it's a concept that will take off in crypto, because I do feel like we're at a point now where people are kind of tired of just mindlessly trenching, and I think they want something a bit more, with a bit more substance behind the coin.
Yeah, I mean, I think you're totally spot on, and I think you actually get to a broader point here, which it seems like you guys have addressed just based on some of the initial research that we had done, which is that there's kind of this dichotomy right now in crypto, which was around the labs and the foundation entities of certain coins. So there's like the labs equity and the foundation token, and so there's kind of like this equity versus token dynamic, and now we're seeing it at large. Like Uniswap was thinking about, I think, and they still are, about going and like IPOing the Uniswap company for the equity, but then they have the token. And same with something like a Pudgy Penguins. What if they try to do an IPO? How do you kind of balance this equity versus token dynamic? And so from what I understand is that you guys ended up giving some either like token or equity, if you will, to NFT holders, and then have figured out a unique way to kind of like merge these two so the incentives are all aligned. Maybe talk us through like any advice or thoughts that you have for other founders or people that are trying to understand how to create this unified incentive structure when sometimes the equity and the token are two separate things. How have you kind of managed this situation, and what is some thoughts, or what are some of your thoughts on navigating this for other crypto projects?
Yeah, it's a good question. So you're right, we actually gifted equity to our NFT holders last year. We took a snapshot, did it through an SEC exemption in the US, and it was all done with an SEC registered dealer broker and everything. So my view on that was like, okay, let's get everyone on the same page, everyone on the same team. We have the team, investors, NFT hold, like community and collectors, everyone owns equity in it. So everyone's on the same team, right? Because in the past, I think you had NFT projects that would raise a lot of capital. And then it's like, okay, now we have to like return value to our investors. How do we do that? We just like consumerize our community, and we'll just sell you more NFTs, dilute you, and make money off you. And then it kind of like changes the intentions, I think. So that was a big thing for us, which actually put everyone on the same level playing field. And yeah, it's a good point. We had the same setup where our company, the operating company that owns the IP and all the drinks revenues go to, is a Delaware registered company. And then there's a Cayman an offshore foundation where the token sits. I think now in this regulatory environment, you would just do it all out of the US because it's much more conducive for crypto activity in the US. And unfortunately, we were a year, 12 months too early for that, like many people. But I think there are very clever ways you can combine the two. And I think there are so many very, very big crypto projects out there, like way bigger than us. Uniswap is one that you mentioned, like tons of them, who all have this setup, right? So I'm convinced that there will be some sort of solution to combine this setup in a way where it makes sense and makes it efficient, whether it means two entities get rolled into one entity, and that's what comes to the market when people IPO and stuff, or there are other, I think, clever ways that you can combine the two, or at least have the value accruing to the final entity that people want to be at. So I think there'll be ways to do it. And yeah, it's tough to get your head around whether you want to own equity in something, if you want to own the token. We're moving to a world of potentially having tokenized equity. So how does that change things? And I think, for someone like us, we have to think about ways where if we do see a world where every equity is tokenized and private equity is tokenized, there needs to be some sort of value accrual to the token from the equity, but within the confines of, securities regulation and all that kind of stuff.
Right.
And whether it's something like, okay, you can burn the token for the equity, and can you work out the mechanics around that so it makes sense? I'm not really sure what the answer is, but you have to, I think every project has to start thinking forward for that and find ways where you ensure that the token doesn't get left behind. So, and I think there'll be solutions, like I said earlier.
What do you think this looks like in 6 months to a year? I take it you guys are probably going to try to expand out of the crypto brands and start to, scale the drink beyond this industry. And then as you guys are shepherding and pilgriming like into those other industries, you're going to have some sort of value accrual back to the token in a regulated, compliant way. Where do you guys see yourselves in 6 months to a year? And then how do you think that'll link back to the token?
Yeah, the easiest way to get value to the token is buybacks, right? Hyperliquid is case in point for it, and that's the gold standard. I think we've done a handful of buybacks with drinks revenues already. We don't have a specific mechanic in place for it yet because, I think we're probably on course to do something like $5 million of revenue this year, right? And let's say 10% goes back towards buying the token, that's $500K, and people are not going to get excited about that. But let's say do $100 million of revenue, which I think is very possible in the functional beverage space, and 10% goes to it, and just making these numbers up, that's $10 million, and people are like, oh shit, that's a lot of that's a lot going up into token buybacks, right? But you want to announce it at a point where people get excited about it and it means something, and I think you have to build the story before you start doing that. And I know Luca has been asked this question a handful of times, and there was he did a podcast last week and he spoke about his strategy for that, and I completely agree with his ideology on that too. In the next 6 months, we have to break out of Web3. Like, I think for us to hit $100 million of revenue, which I think is very possible in the space we're entering, we have to start appealing to normal people. The product itself has to be good. What I would say is in the last 12 months, you've had 4 different functional beverage companies, Olipop, Poppy, Alani Nutrition, and Ghost Energy, who've all raised capital or been acquired for valuations between $1.5 and $2 billion. And these are like new companies. They're like 5 to 7 years old. They're not old companies, right? And they've done it in a very short space of time. And the drivers of their success have been entering the functional space. So whether that's like energy, focus, hydration, like all that kind of stuff is massive right now. And the other thing is social media. Like, all these guys have been killing it on the social media front, have big Instagram followings, have influencers, all that kind of stuff. And I think in terms of the history of brands, you've had the first iteration was like physical stores, people going to physical stores, buy stuff. Then you had the internet, I go into Amazon, buy something. Then you had social media, stuff like Prime. Okay, I see Logan Paul drinking it, like I want to drink it. And the next iteration of it all, I think, is Web3 and crypto. How does Web3 get integrated in a way where it makes sense for people to be a part of it? And I think we're a first mover in that. We're definitely a first mover in that in the beverage space. And that's how I think we have something different, that we can combine the two things to do something really special, I think. And that's what we're pushing towards.
Very cool.
So OSF Rect is sitting at 330 mil FDV or so right now. How do you get this thing to 2 or 3 bill? What's the 10x here?
Yeah, it's a good question. I think when people start seeing that top line revenue number go materially higher, that's when people get excited. Like, we're going to end this year at 500% higher revenue than we were last year. So that's already it's already like a massive increase, right? We're on course to sell 1 million drinks in our first 12 months, which I need to verify this, but I think it hasn't been done since Red Bull in the 90s or Mike's Hard Lemonade. So all this stuff is like only possible within crypto, right? So within the crypto space, people want to see, oh, these guys are actually selling drinks in supermarkets, or they want like a pudgy style Walmart headline. And now Rect is stocked across thousands of stores in the US and globally. And it's a product with a massive target addressable market. If we can like nail that story and those revenues, then I think people will be like, oh shit, this can be really big, right? That's
and
just go ahead. Yeah.
Where are you guys now? Where can we buy Rect?
It's just D2C from our website. We did a 7-Eleven store activation a couple of months ago in LA, and then we'll have some stuff coming up later this year. But right now, all our sales, the vast majority of our sales have been just D2C from our website, which
Mhm.
some people say, oh, that, you know, shit, you should be in more stores and stuff. But I think the fact that we've done that amount of sales just from our website, you go tell that to a distributor, they're like, oh shit, like we should be distributing this, you know, nationwide, right? So when we start doing that, you have to imagine that number goes up a lot, right? That number does another 3x, 5x, 10x, whatever it is. So that's the story for it. We have to build our credibility in the traditional beverage space, right? We have to show we're not a one-trick pony. We have to show we're not crypto scammers. We have to show there's a real business behind it, a real community behind it. But over time, we've been proving that. You know, it was hard after our first sale, but now after our 5th or 6th sale, when all the drinks sell out in a couple of minutes, repeatedly, like there's a strong story there. So we'll have more announcements and some big stuff, I think, coming up before the end of the year and also next year. But that growth for like, you know, for like just a drinks company, can actually be pretty big, can actually be very big.
Yeah.
And we have something unique, I think, to that industry that no one else has.
Man, I'm telling you, the Rollup TV daily live stream sponsorship is going to send sales to the absolute
Exactly.
biggest stratosphere. So just get those things ready, boys and girls. If you're watching this right now, I'm going to be sipping on Rekt. Osef, I wanted to further zoom in a bit more on this kind of 10x here for a Rekt token, right? I mean, whatever it is, kind of getting to the next level. You did mention some of the buybacks, how you felt about that. Luca did have a clip that I saw go pretty viral recently saying, and the text was just buybacks are stupid. I wanted to give you a chance to piggyback on that. Maybe we'll quote tweet that with the clip here. Like, do you agree firmly that there's a certain level in which buybacks should occur? Do you think that it's kind of silly in the early stage to be just buying a token instead of investing into the business? Kind of, what is your brutally honest take about buybacks with regards to Rekt and the Rekt token on its mission to kind of, you know, 10x from here to the multi-billion-dollar FDV mark?
Yeah. So look, people are obsessed with buybacks because of Hyperliquid, right? But Hyperliquid is not the only project in crypto that does buybacks. It's not the first project that does it. You have had stuff like Radium, stuff like Rollbit. A lot of the casino stuff have done it, and they haven't worked out. You know, they haven't really worked out. Even though you do the maths and the fees are being generated are crazy, and the token should be a lot higher, they haven't always worked out. The reason why it makes perfect sense for Hyperliquid is because they have that thing fully greased, up and running. It's a machine. It's a machine that prints revenues, and all they need to do is attract more users. And it makes sense to just, you know, spend those fees and buying their token. That business model makes perfect sense. But when you're growing a brand, whether it's Pudgy, whether it's Rekt, your growth is, you know, a result of how much money you spend on growing the business, right? So if we just sat here and put all our revenues into buying back the token, number one, we'd be fucked on tax basically, because token buybacks you can't offset against your corporate tax. Number two, every dollar we'd spend on that is a dollar we could have spent on growing the business, right? So like, we're not gonna make this thing go. We're not gonna 10x our revenues just by buying back Rekt coin. We're gonna 10x our revenues by getting a big distribution bill, being in thousands of stores, like spending a bit on marketing to get the presence of Rekt like much larger in the Web 2 space and the traditional space. Like these are all the same things that are probably going through Luca's mind, where it's like, okay, we can make Pengu massive like in the world if we spend money to grow the business. And then when you get to a certain point where it's like, okay, we have a massive 9-figure annual recurring revenue rate, now it's time to like start buying back the token. But guess what? By that point in time, your token's going to be higher anyway. Like your token goes up because of the success of the underlying company and the business and the brand. If we kill it, and if we don't buy back any tokens from now until, let's say, 2027, but we 5x our revenues and we have, you know, a massive presence as a drinks brand, the token's going to be higher. It's just going to be higher. I mean, as you mentioned, we're up a lot in the last 3 or 4 months. And the last buyback we did were in like April and May. And just in that time frame, we've just been killing it on drink sales, and we're up. It's up, whatever it is, 2,000%. So I think people just get so obsessed with like, I want to have this buyback mechanic, but you don't necessarily need it, because people understand that this is how businesses work. And compared to stock buybacks, right? Like people don't just sit there and buy back their stock all day long. They buy it back when they think it's cheap. So another thing that Luca was talking about, and they buy it back when it makes sense. So I think in the early stages of growth, it doesn't always make sense. We bought back tokens this year because we thought it was extremely cheap versus what we had planned and what we view the business as. And if those opportunities present themselves again, we will buy back tokens.
Yeah, well, that's the thing, right? Is like Luca's like, why am I just going to bid my token up in FOMO when I can just set actual bids lower where we think there's fair value and try to create more of a floor rather than try to chase my own coin. So yeah, I got you. What is it like working with Farouk and the FOMO Hour guys and the other team members? Kind of like, what are some of like the, you know, if you had to glaze some of your awesome, you know, friends and team members, like what is the one or two things that like create separation from an entrepreneur perspective for somebody like Farouk or some of your other partners? Like, what are some key characteristics? And I'll give an example is that I've noticed that meticulousness in everything across certain investors and entrepreneurs, which is very, very common, that they want to do everything just right, perfectly, and have a meticulous desire to have everything be exact. And I found that is a trait of somebody, you know, who is going to, you know, do big things and kind of be able to scale at a higher level. Curious with some of your partners and close friends, what are some of the things that make them great, you know, that you've picked up on for yourself and your own abilities?
Yeah, look, I've known like Farouk pretty much since I joined crypto in 2021. Mando, I've known him for about more than 10 years now. We used to work together before entering crypto. And I think the main thing about all of these guys, anyone who's really successful in this space, is people stick it out through the tough times, right? They don't give up during bear markets. I mean, Farouk's been cancelled like 79 times, right? Like most people will just leave, but he's stuck it out and now he's doing very well. I mean, the guy interviewed Trump, right? Like last year, probably the biggest possible interview you could land in and the biggest thing he could do in his profession. So these guys will just stick it out through the tough times. And that's what you need to do, because a big part of crypto is getting people to buy into your personal story. And if you're someone who just turns up every day through a 2-year bear market, whatever, keeps building, keeps trading, keeps offering advice, whatever it is that you do. But if you're just there and you're like, yeah, I know this is shit, but I'm just going to stick it out just because, people will remember that. And then when the times are good, you have a strategic advantage versus other people, because they're like, oh shit, I remember that guy. He stuck it out the entire time, didn't just like sell the top and leave and then come back. You know, like no, everyone hates that guy, right? People like the people who stick around, and that allows you to build a following and you know, get people to believe in what you're doing. And it doesn't really matter what it is that you're doing, people will believe in it. And that, I think, is the most common trait of people who I perceive to be successful in this space.
Yeah, I appreciate that. No, I think you're right. I mean, that has led to a lot of our brand's growth just in this last 18 months. People are like, oh, what is the Rollup new? Like, you know, like the last year I've seen you guys everywhere. And I'm like, dude, if only you saw us 5 years, you know, just grinding, right? Just to get even to a point, like even this whole live stream thing is just like, it's just this constant iterative process, right? And so I think you're spot on there. Wanted to kind of even zoom out even further, a bit more of a broader question as well, outside of just like what you guys are doing with the partners and the team, just more broadly on growing your audience in the space. What have been some of the most impactful things that you've done either with your audience or to grow your audience that other creators can learn from, right? So I've got like 71K on Twitter. I've seen you're in the couple hundred of thousands. Obviously, it was a big 2021 retail cycle, but you've done a lot of things right. What are some of the things that you've done right in growing your audience? And what are some of the potential mistakes that you've made that other creators could learn from as well?
I think there are two in this space. There are probably 3 reasons why someone would follow someone, and that probably condenses into 2. One of them is you just find someone funny or entertaining or whatever. Like if someone posts good memes, you follow them, right? The other one is like if someone's giving out good advice. If it's good, helpful, useful information, good advice, like yeah, I'll follow that. And the third reason is if you perceive they can make you money, which is kind of like similar to the one before, because you know they're related things, obviously. So for me, I think I gained an early following because I don't know, did some good trades, and I kind of like I'd write out like my thought process and stuff. I've never really been like a pump and dump type person, you know, like for me, it's not really like that enjoyable to do something like that. And I think every time I've done trades, I've been like, hey, this is my thought process behind it. Here's what I've done. Here's where I think it can go. And then, you know, if I've made money on it, or if I've lost money on it, you own up to it, right? Like you have to be honest with your followers, I think. So, but I think, you know, having had some early success, that helped me gain quite a large following. But I think being direct and honest about what you're doing is better. You know, it's better to say, you know, there are people out there who get paid to shill coins, right? Like that's just like a thing in crypto. So if someone goes like, hey, I've been paid 10 grand to shill this coin, but I really like it and I think it's going to go higher, I'd be like, yeah, you know what? Fair enough. Like maybe you're right. Maybe it does go higher, but at least you're honest. Whereas if someone doesn't tell you they've been paid and they're like, oh, this thing's going to go to like a bill. And then it's just kind of like, okay. And you find out, they're like, okay, I wouldn't trust that guy. Right. So I think it's about being completely honest about what you're doing in the space and being transparent. And I think the second thing is like, how, you know, can you be creative or interesting and do things where people can make money off what you're doing? And I think for me, you know, Rhett Guy was a free mint. I've given out a lot of my artwork for free. Our holders got equity in the company for free. They got Retcoin for free. So there's this like perception that, oh, if I keep following RSF and get involved in this rec stuff, like maybe I'll make some money for free. And there are people in our community who've been there since, you know, the first day, like almost 4 years ago now, who've probably made thousands, maybe tens of thousands, maybe even hundreds of thousands of dollars just from like, you know, sticking around and figuring out like what we're doing and what we're planning and not really having to like put much money into it. Right. And I think that's, you know, if you can actually successfully make money for people, you will get a large following in whatever you're doing. That's just like, you know, it's just one of those things, right?
Yeah, it's a principle that we've talked about. We call it economic karma. Right? It's
Yeah.
just, you make money for people and like it'll come back around.
Exactly.
Awesome. Oh, Steph, I don't have much else for you. Andy, what else?
I got a couple more for sure.
Let 'em rip.
Yeah, I'm curious. Do you think like most successful consumer brands will launch tokens? Like, do you see this as a viable path for like, I don't know, like Pokemon, maybe not Pokemon, right? But like, I don't know, Yeti, this mug, right? Like, is there going to be a Yeti coin just because like we can, or like how do you see this path between, let's call them mid-sized companies who probably don't have what it takes to IPO, nor really want to go through that whole process? Like, do you see the tokenization of consumer brands as a trend that like accelerates, or is it kind of just in the early innings? Like, where do you see this broadly?
I don't
Okay.
see every mid-sized company doing it. I don't see big companies doing it. I see lots of people trying, but I don't see them being successful at it. And the reason is, for a token to do really well, you need to have this massive community around you. And the community needs to be crypto native. They need to understand what's going on, and they need to believe in it. And it's also, it's an underdog story, right? It's like Rect is an underdog story. It's like, can we fight the big boys using crypto? And that's what people are trying to get behind this story. If Pepsi came and did a token, people kind of, you know, it would rip, it would do really well, it'd be like a daily runner, and then it would probably get sold down. It would get sold down over time because, like, you know, no one in crypto is really going to care to own something like that. It will have some sort of floor value, but that's it. Whereas there's no mission there, right? It's like what Murad says about SPX and other coins. You need a mission behind it. You need a mission coin, and for Rect, there's a mission. It's like, you know, let's battle with the big boys, and, you know, let's see if we can get up there in the traditional world using crypto. So if Yeti does a token, like, you know, what's the mission behind it? Why would someone want to own it? It doesn't really feel like there's good messaging there. And I think for an existing non-crypto brand to have a token that does well, they need to spend years in developing and building a crypto community and following before they even think about doing a token. And then when they do a token, it will be successful. Otherwise, it will just be an extraction event, and it will actually be damaging to their reputation. And we've seen that many times with celebrity coins and whatnot. You know, you guys know the story, right? So I don't need to tell you.
No, yeah, I totally agree. And I see 𝘂𝘂𝘂𝘂, like, he's pushing out on trying to like get different artists on chain, and he's like, somebody was like, should we hit up Peggy Goo to do a token? And he was like, look, I think we should probably just wait until we have an actual really good use case to present to these people, that isn't just like, let me scam my followers. We got to kind of figure out, maybe there's a new model that comes out on the consumer side. But yeah, OSF, just want to give you kind of closing thoughts, man. Where can we find you? Where can we buy Rect? How can our community get involved and support you guys?
Yeah, my handle on X is OSF_rect, or if you follow Rect Drinks, it's Rect Drinks on all our socials: YouTube, Instagram, TikTok, X, etc. And we have our next drinks drop coming up very soon. We'll have some more announcements on that shortly. So keep an eye on the Rect Drinks handle. And Rectcoin you can buy on Kraken now. You can buy on Binance US if you're in the US, and obviously you can always buy it on chain on Uniswap. We're on ETH, we're on Solana, we're on Base, we're on Binance Smart Chain, we're on Abstract. So many venues to buy it from. Just check out Rectcoin on X.
OSF, man, appreciate your time. Great work, and been a big fan. So looking forward to getting some Rect Drinks. We'll buy them if we have to.
We'll send you some. Don't worry. We'll send you some.
We'll be sipping on the stream, Rob. Rect, OSF, great brand.
Love it. Cheers, guys. Thanks a lot for having me.
Cheers, man. We'll see you next time.
You.
Thanks
Cheers,
for coming on.
Alrighty, Rob. That's OSF. That's Rect. Looks like we're gonna get some Rect Drinks. I'm stoked on that.
Oh yeah.
Man, we got to do a recap. Let's go back to the top here. Hype all-time high, back above 50. We had the stablecoin issuance conversations today, 3 of them. If you guys didn't catch all those, we're gonna post it as one big YouTube hit on the Rollup. We'll have it. It'll be an hour and a half. Every conversation, we'll put them into there, and we'll showcase those. But Rob, Hype clearly got the attention of the market this weekend into this week. Oftentimes we think that a lot of the market performances are really linked to attention. I mean, you see it time and time again, how attention impacts markets. So we had Agora, we then had Paxos, and we had Frax. I don't know what the best one is. They all sound great. I mean, Paxos
come on.
really sounds good.
Give us your prediction.
Is, dude, if Athena comes in, that's going to be insane.
Yeah.
I mean, well, we have to hear from Max tomorrow.
From Native
and we
Markets.
have USDT Zero guy, who's a huge validator, coming on tomorrow. And I think we're going to need to hear from Ryan Watkins as well sometime this week, maybe even Vance from Framework. But I just think any of them are a good option, and this is just going to be a massive win for Hyperliquid. I don't know. Based on those 3, like Sam and Frax have obviously supported us for a while. I think they would do a great job. Paxos seems like they got everything together. The 95% is just kind of annoying. Agora also has an amazing Van Eck, huge background, huge opportunities there with BlackRock and all the stuff that they're doing. It's just hard to pick one. I mean, it's not going to be an easy vote for the community.
Nothing against Agora, but I think Frax and Paxos are in the lead.
You think?
I think they've each ran stablecoins to billions of dollars. Paxos even more so, but I think Frax, I think, has a little bit of an advantage over Paxos because they have that cultural alignment with Hyperliquid. They're very crypto native, and I think Paxos, even though they have the enterprise grade institutional vibe, I think it almost works against them in that regard. And they're buttoned up, their suit and tie. Maybe it helps them, maybe it doesn't. I think if it's up to the Hyperliquid core team, I think that experience helps them. If it's up to the validators in the community, which it is, I think they might go into the more crypto native side. Athena and Guy, I think, probably will put something forth, and I think that will shake things up. I also wouldn't be surprised if Circle put forth a more impressive proposal. I think they would just see so much of their business evaporate as a result of them losing out on the Hyperliquid stablecoin place. And that's where I think we're headed. So it's very interesting. We're going to see what happens. But obviously, this is working out for Hyperliquid. We're back above all-time highs. This thing is in price discovery, and it is a tremendous marketing campaign, probably the best since John Wynn. I think
we have a major news event here.
Yeah, we hadn't talked about this, but this happened during the stream.
Yeah. So Rob, finish your thought there. I mean, look, I think it's interesting that you think Paxos and Frax are in the lead, but this is just, we got to react to some of the timeline on this. This is just getting out of hand.
I saw a couple projects said that they were safe.
Yeah, I saw Phantom just came out and said that they were safe.
Curve said that they were safe.
So the CTO of Ledger comes out and says, Charles Guillemet warns of supply chain attack in the JavaScript ecosystem after an NPM account compromise. The affected packages have been downloaded over 1 billion times, meaning the entire JavaScript ecosystem may be at risk. The malicious payload works by silently swapping crypto addresses on the fly to steal funds. If you use a hardware wallet, pay attention to every transaction before signing and you're safe. If you don't use a hardware wallet, refrain from making any on-chain transactions. This is crazy. Still unclear whether the attacker is also stealing seeds from software wallets directly at this stage.
So my impression
Yikes.
from what else I'm seeing on the timeline is that obviously this is something to take pause and give it proper caution. But I also am seeing that the attack vector is a lot smaller than all websites, all wallets, all transactions. OX Not Gonna Make It from DeFi Llama had a pretty good explanation of this. He describes how in any website that uses this hacked dependency, it gives them a chance to, it gives the hacker a chance to inject malicious code. For example, when you click a swap button on a website, the code might replace the transaction sent to your wallet with a transaction sending money to hacker. But in your wallet, you'd still see the bad transaction. You would still need to approve the bad transaction. So it's not going to just instantly drain you. Even after you hit swap, you would still have to approve the transaction. If you use a hardware wallet, you'd still have to approve on your hardware wallet. This will only impact websites that pushed an update since the hacked NPM package was published, as other projects will have the old version. So if the website, published any updates recently, they might include this. Most projects pin their dependencies, so even if they push an update, they'll keep using the old safe code. Basically, your wallet is safe and the effective impact area is much smaller than all websites. But since you cannot really know if a project pinned dependencies or if they have some other dynamically downloaded dependency, which is very unlikely, it's just safer to avoid using crypto websites till this blows over and they clean up the bad packages. I think that sums up both what happened and what takeaways and actions to take going forward.
Yep. Okay. All right. So I guess we just stay off chain for today.
Stay safe. Let the Solana treasury companies do what they do. And
just be careful on any interactions on chain today.
Yeah, be careful. Hold the line. This will blow over. And then when you get back on chain, you make sure that you do it safely.
Yeah. All right, Rob, it's been a pretty good stream, man. We got a lot going on the business side. I saw Santi just came out with their announcement for the seed round.
Yeah.
Super stoked on that for inversion. Very, very cool. Hyperliquid's obviously the talk of the town, so we have a lot to cover there this week. Another awesome stream tomorrow, guys. We'll be here every day this week. Rob, pretty good Monday. I think it's time to sign off.
I'd say so. Another great stream. Thanks to the whole team behind the scenes. Andy, thanks for another great episode. We will see everyone next time. Thanks for tuning in. Smash that like button. Just kidding. We're not crypto YouTubers, but we are streamers. In the era of podcasting, be gone and streaming come forth.
See you guys next time tomorrow. Signing off.